I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I hereby call this meeting of the Ascension Parish Council Finance Committee meeting to order. Order is a wonderful thing. I ask that you rise and join Council Member Cheryl Fontenot as she gives the invocation, then we'll all recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, we just come to you tonight. We just thank you for your mercy and for your grace and all your many blessings. We ask for your wisdom tonight as we go through these items on the agenda, especially where the budget is concerned. We ask that you provide us with the funds that we need to run this parish. We thank you for our servicemen who are abroad and at home, and our fire department people, and our policemen, and even the volunteers, Father. All those who serve this nation, we ask that you bless them tonight, and that those that are away, we ask that you get them home safely. We ask all these things, as always, in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Zahn, if you would please make a note that Mr. Thomas, Mr. Thompson, and Mr. Byriger are not with us tonight.
Byriger's in the...
Mr. Byriger is here in the spirit. As part of Parish President Ronnie Hughes' austerity program, you see we've been trying to conserve a little electricity here.
I'm old, I'm blind. I'm freezing.
Yeah, cool.
There are no chairs additions. And item number 4, the public comment period. As always, we invite the public to speak on any of our agenda items, and we encourage you to come forth when that particular item is being discussed so that we can hear your comments at that time. We look forward to hearing from you. Item number 5, does anyone have any new business that they need to discuss tonight that's not on the agenda? Does anyone have any old business? Good, we got a full agenda. I'd like to go just a little bit out of order then, and let's take item number 8, Fire District number 3, request for revenue bonds for capital and equipment improvements. And we have Mr. Walter Leftwich of the Fire District number 3 Board, Malcolm Dugai, our bond attorney, and Mr. Jim Ryan, who is our financial consultant on that. Gentlemen?
Thank you, members of the council. This is a resolution of council giving authority to Fire District 3 to issue bonds not to exceed $5 million, not to exceed 8%. In reality, they'll probably use right now about $1.5 million for a fire station, $1 million for equipment. We are asking for not to exceed $5 in case they want to come back next year, the year after that, and people have to go back to the bond commission at one time.
Mr. Ryan, this is a revenue bond. Could you very briefly explain the difference between a revenue bond and a general obligation bond?
Be glad to. The biggest difference is a revenue bond is secured by a source of revenue. There are two types of bonds in the world, a general obligation bond and a revenue bond, which is basically every other type of bond. A general obligation bond is secured by a dedicated millage that fluctuates as is needed to levy debt service or collect debt service. So anytime the debt service comes due, the assessor simply backs into the amount of debt service and levies that mill whatever it takes to pay the debt service. It is the perfect credit. It's like borrowing a $100,000 mortgage with $1 million in the bank from the bank. Any other type of revenue bond is not secured by that pledge. They are more risky, harder to structure, harder to sell, and generally you pay a higher rate of interest on any other type of revenue bond than GO bond, in a nutshell.
And what you're asking for tonight is permission to seek a revenue bond.
Yes, sir, Mr. McCullough.
Does anyone have any questions? Then what is the pleasure of this committee? Mr.
Leftwich, do you want to speak before we get to that point?
Mr. Leftwich, did you want to make a...
I just want to make a comment and, of course, answer any questions concerning the bond. Of course, first I'd like to thank this councilman and the president for making this step to this point a reality. The Fire District 3, Fairwood Under Fire Department for that district, they levied a village tax, and for the purpose of hiring fire chief, full-time firemen, infrastructure, and equipment. for better protection and for fire protection, of course, also for emergency, saving lives and such. It is becoming a reality. Right now we're interviewing a fire chief, which we will have online January the 1st. We're planning at least 6 full-time firemen. We'll continue with the 2 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These 2 positions will be continued. We recently had a consultant that came in, and the consultant told us where we need to be for our rating, which is probably going to be, well, in fact, they told us it would be this next year for PIL, for insurance rating. The consultant gave us the information that we need to work with to get to that position for that rating, and the equipment that was necessary. And of course, this is part of the bond. We need 3 pieces of equipment that's fairly expensive, and there's no way possible to be able to pay for that equipment up front. So this is why we have to have a bond. And we have our central station, which is we've been looking at for a number of years of doing something with the station on 73. That station is 35 years old. It's not possible that we could continue with that, to utilize that. We're either going to have to spend a lot of money remodeling there, because what we need we need firemen that's there full time, and we need a facility for them to stay. We need meeting rooms for them. We need a facility for a fire chief, and we need 4 bays. So we're talking about even remodeling, and this will be our central fire station. Our remodeling is going to be very expensive, all for our station. So we're looking over $1 million there. So these 2 things are the 2 main major projects, and we're looking at probably $25,000 and $600,000 salaries. So these are plans that we have to kind of give you an idea of this council, and these are realities that's going to start taking effect in January, full-time personnel and such. So the people of that community, I think they can thank this council and the officers of the executive committee for this move that we're making right now. So it's real, I feel very good that this is going to be a reality, and I want to thank y'all.
Councilwoman Fontenot.
I just want to say thank you to the Fire District Number 3 staff and people and boards. I know that you're doing all that you can to bring the fire district status up in Fire District Number 3. We support your continuous good works, and I know the people in that area are really, really, really proud to have a fire department that is proactive, and I thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hillensbeck.
I too would just like to say, Walter, how much I appreciate what y'all have done so far and how you're moving forward. And of course, I know everyone in the area is looking forward to improvements in the fire rating, which the homeowners, property owners will see a reduction in their insurance costs, along with improved fire safety protection. So I just want to commend you as the chairman of Fire District Board 3 and all the members for what you've done, how you're moving along. I think it's definitely a model for the rest of the parish. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion to adopt the resolution. Does it need to be read, Mr. Batten?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, to recommend to the full council the adoption of this resolution to allow the fire district to proceed with the revenue bonds for capital improvement and equipment. Is there any more discussion? Is there any opposition? Then motion passes. Ms. Suzanne, would you please add that to the agenda for next week?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking me on where I have to be at a finance committee meeting at Parkway Baptist Church to hire Bert Falk. I appreciate you.
Colonel Bacala, could you escort him out of the parish? No. Watch your speed, Mr. Ryan. Okay, item number 7, our monthly finance reports. Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer Gwen LeBlanc and Assistant Treasurer Amanda Barat. And I think you have those there in front of you as well.
Good evening, members of the council, Parish President Hughes. We have our normal monthly report for our sales tax. Once again, the sales tax revenues represent our largest source of revenue, so we use this as one of our key components to just review our finances. If you look at the bar chart, the first page, this is October's report, but it's based on September sales. And we have the three sales tax districts: East Ascension Drainage, Sales and Use Tax District number 1, and Sales and Use Tax District number 2. The comparison from October collections a year ago, for the three districts, that they're up considerably, 30%, 29.7, 26.4, and 28.7. And that, as you would imagine, is primarily due to the activity caused by the Hurricane Katrina. So the year-to-date is a more reflective position. You can see that it used to be like 10 to 12 we were reporting. It because of this October collection month, it's also up a point or two for each, 13.1, 13.8, and 14.2. We'll probably have another, extraordinary month for the sales in October also. And compared to the budget year-to-date, now also bear in mind that the budget we're comparing it to is not the budget that's in your budget book, because that's an amended budget that's still proposed. It has not been adopted, so this is the current budget. And it's up there too, you can see, by 13 to 17%. When I compared it to the budget that we presented for amendment, it's up 1.3, 1.5, and 3.5, because we're amending it to closer to reality. So the second page is the charts. If you look at that, the first chart is the three sales tax districts, comparing that to year-to-date versus remainder of the year. You can see in 2004, the blue section represents the amount collected in 2004 that is above the November collections and December collections. I mean, October sales, November sales, and December sales. So you can see how 5 year-to-date has surpassed that by the 30%. And the third page, the last chart, is a history chart. And what we anticipate ending 2005, we will be back up to 2002, 2003 sales. So, it took 5 years to get here, but, we're anticipating that we'll get back up into that area of that peak time in Ascension Parish. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it.
Questions, anyone for Ms. Gwen LeBlanc?
Just a statement, it looks like the Hughes effect is still taking place. Sales tax collections are up.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
And of course, they're up in September, and primarily because of the hurricane. But don't forget that we've also had some major retail business open in Prairieville
I did right.
and Donaldsonville.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you.
Ms. Barat, you prepared to go over the major fund?
General fund revenue, this is for the month of September. It's actually the third quarter report. Some of the funds you'll notice are over basically because of encumbrances. Some of them are over, and we are, as you know, the budget is being amended, so some of it's covered by budget amendment. Revenues are for the general fund at 77%. Total expenditures for the general fund is at 71%. Under general administration, your operating expenses are at 83%, and that's due to the professional services are all encumbered for the year based on their contract allowance. Emergency management operating expenses at 106%, and that's due to Katrina expenses that will be reimbursed from FEMA. The Planning and Development Department is operating expenses are at 92%, and that's due to engineering contract that's encumbered for the year. And intergovernmental grants operating expenses at 641%, and that is a budget amendment for the Riverfront Development Grant. Under Public Works Funds, road and bridge revenues at 66%, expenditures are at 80%. Your East Ascension drainage revenues at 82%, expenditures are at 65%. East Ascension major drainage revenues are at 73%, expenditures are at 66%. West Ascension drainage revenues are at 83%, expenditures are at 73%. Your maintenance fund revenues at 74%, expenditures are at 75%. Your rural sales and use taxing districts, sales and use tax fund District Number 1, revenues are at 76%, expenditures are at 55%. Sales tax Number 2, revenues are at 48%, expenditures are at 78%. Your health unit and mental health and jail fund, health unit revenue is at 83%. Expenditures are at 76%. Mental health revenues are at 74%. The expenditures are at 77%. Your jail fund revenue is at 75%. Your expenditures are at 82%. The Recreation Department's revenue, Recreation A revenues at 80%, expenditures at 71%. Recreation B revenues at 85%, expenditures at 81%. Construction fund revenue, your construction funds, East Ascension major construction fund revenues at 70%, your expenditures at 14%. Courthouse East construction fund revenues at 100%, expenditures at 75%. Road construction revenues at 57%, expenditures at 46%. Office building construction revenues are at 7%, expenditures are at 11%. Fire District Number 1 construction revenues at 0, expenditures at 4%. Water wastewater fund revenues at 0%, expenditures at 12%. And LCDBG Darrow Sewer Project revenues at 22%, expenditures at 100%. And I won't go over the remaining funds unless y'all have some questions about it.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Barat?
Yeah, Amanda, let's go back to recreation on the miscellaneous where we're at 23,000 over. What's the cause for that?
That's because of the increase in registration fees. When y'all increase the registration fees,
From
the
10 to
budget is being
25.
amended to reflect that
Okay.
increase in revenues.
All right.
Anybody else? Thank you, Amanda. And we know you're always available to answer questions. Item number 8, is Mr. Eddie Crawford here with us tonight?
Number 9.
I'm sorry, number 9. Item number 9, Lamar Dixon report. Ms. Suzanne, if you would get in touch with Mr. Crawford, just get a copy of his report and see that it's emailed to all of the members. He may be coming later, and if he does, we'll take him at a later time. Item number 10, FEMA Transitional Housing, Mr. Charles Guidry, Community Services Officer. Mr. President?
Where's Charles? Let me just say a couple words. I think during their meeting, I guess it was one day last week, Colonel Bill Croft, who is the nuts and bolts guy with the Governor's Task Force on Transitional Housing, brought in about 6 people who are involved with transitional housing for FEMA to review the 108 vacant lots that we had turned in and to give us an update on where they were as far as moving homes onto those lots, negotiations with the commercial owners of those existing trailer parks and so forth. And in that discussion, they also talked about the possibility, and they went over just a litany people they had been talking to in our parish and other facilities, and I reminded them that the council had done a resolution and that the leadership council, from sheriff's personnel and school system, legislators, etc., had addressed this issue in length. And I suggested if they were asking for anything more than those vacant lots and existing trailer parks in our parish, that technically they can negotiate with anyway because they're already existing trailer parks, but they would have to come before this body, and I asked them to be very specific in what they were requesting and to talk to you. So they're somewhere in the building because I saw them earlier and I left another meeting. And so, Don, Mr. Heisler, would you go to the conference room in Public Works back there and see if Charles Guidry and them, they were in that room when we left a while ago. They're not in there?
No, I won't go.
Oh, you won't go? Oh, okay. 10 minutes?
All right.
Well, they say they need 10 more minutes, Mr. Chairman, so you may want to come back to it.
We may want to come back to that. Before we proceed to the next item, I would like to recognize some guests in our audience. We have our sheriff, Jeff Wiley, is with us tonight. We have the Chief Deputy, Colonel Tony Bacala is with us. We have the Warden of our parish jail, Warden Bobby Weber, and I also see our Superintendent of Education, Mr. Robert Cluot here. We welcome you, all of you here with us tonight.
You got some other elected officials over there, too.
We have some of our justices of the peace, our constables from the J.P. Court. We have Constable Dean Smith, and we have Constable Steve Juneau in the back of the room.
Justice Dean Smith. We got the mayor
Dean Smith. All right, okay.
We got the mayor prayer bill.
You need to write those down. Okay.
Walter.
We welcome you. Thank you all for being here. Okay, item number 11. If you all recall, a good while back, we commissioned a study, this council commissioned a study of the Ascension Parish Jail because of the escalating costs that were involved. We wanted to look at the jail and figure out what was going on. Back in March, you should all have received the results of that study. And Chairman Savoy has requested, and I appreciate your doing that, Jerry, that we get a report to this council about the results of that study so we can find out what we can do. You know, we work hand in glove with the Sheriff's Office to run the parish jail, and this is a study that I think will help us do it a little more efficiently. So we have Justice Concepts of Kansas City, Missouri. We have Dr. Nancy Insco and Dr. Alan Beck, who are here with Justice Concept, and they are here to present the findings of their study. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the council,
Too late.
President Hughes. We are delighted to be here this evening, and this is perhaps a little overdue visit and briefing to you, but we're delighted, as I said, to be here, and we are going to take you through a series of slides. Those slides really are not a total reiteration of the study, but highlight key points and concepts which I think will help the committee to understand, maybe even more in layman's terms. Sometimes we in the criminal justice system throw out a lot of language that other people are mesmerized by. We've tried to make this as user-friendly as we possibly can. Let me just say a little bit about us for a second for those of you who don't know us. We are, as the chairman mentioned, consultants based in Kansas City, Missouri. We've been in our consulting practice for 11 years. And between the two principals, Dr. Beck and myself, we have almost 60 years, I hate to admit that, but almost 60 years cumulative experience in the criminal justice system, with an emphasis on corrections. I myself was a warden of a maximum security facility for 8.5 years, and an adult multi-security level female facility for about 3.5 years. As the director of parole and probation for the state of Maryland, and I had 153,000 offenders underneath my supervision. Dr. Beck, although I'm not going to speak for him, comes from an extensive diagnostic background, dealing with forensics, offenders, and also was employed by the U.S. Department of Justice in a planning capacity, and he can say more if he'd like, but we'll roll right into our presentation. Let me give you the history of how we became involved with Ascension Parish. Warden Weber and Sheriff Wiley contacted us to discuss the whole issue of jail overcrowding and the need for this parish to build any additional secure beds. That conversation, I think, took place in spring of '04, and by October of '04, almost a year to the date, we conducted on-site a study that was funded both by the Parish Council as well as the Sheriff's Office. We were on site for about 5 days to examine the phenomenon here of jail overcrowding and to determine the need or the extent of the need for construction of additional jail beds. How did we do this study? What was our methodology? In essence, we collected an enormous amount of data from the jail. In fact, we started collecting it prior to our visit so we could analyze it and made our visit that much more productive. Collected an enormous amount of data from the jail and from as many other criminal justice agencies as was available to us. We interviewed all the criminal justice agency key participants, key staff who play a role in the Ascension Parish justice system, and including law enforcement as well as the courts. We examined the availability of community-based resources to determine how much, to what extent those resources could actually assist in the management of the offender population here. And we looked also to the last but an important point, and that is that we looked to the tenor of the community and its threshold for criminal behaviors and law-breaking activities. So, armed with that information, we produced what all of you have by now certainly received, and that was a comprehensive report, and that was sent to the council as well as parish government and to the sheriff on March 23rd, 2005. What did we discover once we were on site? Well, what we discovered was many dedicated criminal justice professionals, many of whom have spent their careers protecting public safety and ensuring the smooth operation of the justice system. And in addition to that, there was a real sense of respect for the plight of offenders and what it was going to take to manage them in a very professional way. We uncovered a number of complex problems, but they were not unsurmountable. They were challenges and issues, and most of these challenges and issues, and we were going to enumerate those in the slideshow here, but they could really be addressed with a concentration or dedication to communication and to a resolution of the obstacles which were really preventing the justice system from smooth operation. Now, why is that important? It is that dysfunctional part of the criminal justice system that really adds to, in a very large way, the jail overcrowding problem. And we will build that case for you through these slides this evening. We would ask, in closing of my short introduction, we would ask that the council members, committee members, perhaps, Mr. Chairman, refrain from asking questions during the slideshow in the interest of time, because I could delay it for hours. But we will be happy to entertain those questions after the last slide. And there are handouts, 2 handouts. One actually is copies of the slides themselves, which provide room for briefing notes, should you desire to make any notes on any of these slides or come up with any questions you'd like to remember. And there's also the executive summary, which was extracted actually from the text of the report. So with that, I'm going to introduce my colleague and partner, Dr. Alan Beck, and he's going to begin the slideshow. We will intermittently exchange narrating these slides.
After you have everyone get comfortable, we'll be projecting here. Thank you. I don't know quite which way to face. I don't want to turn my back on the money, but so.
Speak in the microphone, please, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll try that. Can you hear me okay? Good. Is this on? Can you hear me now? I'm talking pretty loud. Hello? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? No? No, I'm sorry. We're going to work on the mechanical part. Okay, let me try it again. Okay, I'll try it once more. Our show tonight, our presentation, is based upon concepts of, sort of gives you insights on how we approach problems. It will give you some insights into what we're going to look at financially and how we consider the financial aspects of your problem. You hear me now? Okay. So as we go through this, it's not going to be just a regurgitation of what's in the report. That would not be giving appreciation to your time. So we're going to give you more information that will give you some insights on the reasoning behind what we recommend. Uh-oh. Went to sleep on me while we were waiting, so it's... Our bottom line, pay no more than you need to. I hope that rings a good chime with the Finance Committee. We're not soft on crime. We're not saying that you need to ignore the problem of safety in the community. Criminal justice is probably your largest financial outlay. Is it not? It eats up a lot of parish budgets. Our experience is that there are ways to hold down costs. There are ways that we can reduce the impact of needing to add jail beds and how to deal with the correctional population, your offenders. At this point, at the point that you need to build a jail and more beds, we ask, are there ways that you can hold down the impact of that future need? We're not saying that you don't need it right now, but as you're going to see this unfold, we're going to look at some aspects that may be able to hold down some of that impact. 4 key concepts that we're going to address during this presentation. And it deals with how you perceive the problem is how you go toward some of your answers. If you perceive the problem as only being one of crime in the community and it's growing, then the way that you address your problem is going to be different from one that looks at other aspects. We're going to take a system view of the issue rather than just one of looking at growth of crime in the community. The first aspect, it will come up in a second. Technology sometimes gets us all. The first aspect we're going to deal with is that we need to ensure that pretrial defendants, people who have yet not been convicted of a crime, that they remain crime-free and show up for trial. That's the whole purpose of the pretrial process. Now, they can be in jail or they can be out on pretrial release. It's not going to cooperate right now. The other aspect is that we need to provide appropriate sanctions for sentenced offenders. Those people who are sentenced need to have relevant sanctions. If the only tool that you have is a hammer, the whole world gets pounded. So we're looking at fitting the sanctions to the individual offenders. A third aspect that we're looking at is reducing recidivism. You're going to see as we go through this that recidivism is a major problem in this community. We need to be able to address that. And of course, the last aspect is holding down costs. That was always underlying what we do. Our efficiencies can be improved. That is always good, and that will affect our costs. If you let me sort of interrupt this. Common thinking about alleviating jail crowding is that what we need to do automatically, the first thing, is to go out and build some beds. Architects do a lot of marketing. What they market is building more beds. There's a balance between thinking about building beds and about dealing with the problem of overcrowding. There is a way to reduce the impact of the jail population explosion. Okay? There are ways to add jail beds. There are jiffy jails. There are units you can come in and drop in on site. There are modules you can add. Yes, you can do it quickly, and many people will argue very inexpensively. Yet, jail expansion is not easy. We may be drawing so much power off of my outlet that it may be slowing my projector. Site space is very, very limited out on this site. We don't have a huge footprint. It is not a huge site. Once you build that out, and it won't take very much to build that site out, you won't be able to put future expansion on it. That next future expansion will be very expensive. Also, important core areas of this jail that we currently have will have to be expanded. Some of them are inadequate right now, and some of them will have to be added if we add more jail space, have to be expanded. We're going to take a look at what that means. And there's also another consideration of why expansion is not easy. Voters tend to reject things, particularly in instances in which they do not feel that reasonable alternatives have been explored to dealing with the problem. We've been successful in working with communities, and they've been able to show the voters that. So by taking this approach to showing that we are doing what we can to hold down the line and the costs, will help to gain voter confidence. What areas need to be expanded? Take a look at this. If you look right here, there's a whole lot of areas, a lot of them. Are they adequate right now? This one is, Sallyport. This isn't. This isn't. That's right now with what we've got. These are, if we add future space to this jail. In other words, if we put in more beds, you're going to have to expand these areas. All of these that have no will have to be expanded. Well, so you can see there's even more of them on the second page. There's a lot of things that will cost us. So it's not just a matter. The message here, it's not just bringing in a few more cells, putting up a module, setting it on the site. It is that we're going to have to renovate. We're going to have to move some areas out to other areas and build them bigger, in addition to adding those jail beds. So it's a bigger impact, much bigger impact than just adding a few jail beds. Financially, that's big. Let's look at some of the inadequate areas so you can visually get a feeling what I'm talking about. This area right here, this is a booking room. Can you see it okay? That booking room is just about the size of some people's walk-in closet. Just about the size. It has in it this machine right here. That's an automated fingerprint machine. You see this little space right there? That's where the arresting officer has to write his report. So if you're booking an inmate, he can't be there writing a report. And it's not big enough for several people to move around in. So if you get a bigger jail and have a bigger flow of people, you're going to have to expand that area. You can't expand it in the facility because they've used up all the space in the facility. They're going to have to go out and use other areas. There it is. You just have to be patient with it. It's the power is being taken away from our projector. This is the nurse and doctor's physician's room. It's very, as you can see, it's small. Look at this. Here is an examination table. If you want to examine somebody, you have to move it out from the wall, and the person's going to be on it. It's hard to walk around it when you move out from the wall because there isn't much space. This item right here, that's a bathtub. It's very much inadequate currently, and in the future it will be even more so. So that space will have to be added somewhere. Here is the only room that we have at the facility to house somebody who's sick. It's got a bunk bed in it. If you've got a male and a female that's sick, you can't put them in there. If you've got a person who's injured and you have a person who's contagious, you can't put them both in there together. Plus, in the future that we know, we're going to have to address the problem of tuberculosis. That requires a negative airflow, which means we pump air out. It doesn't stay in the facility. This isn't set up for that. So thinking about addition means that we have to deal with this. This is an observation room for inmates. We have one observation room out of the jail. That is, if a person's suicidal or has other problems, we have to put them in that so we can see them, so we can watch them. What the problem is right now is we have to put more than one type of inmate in that room. So if we need to separate more than one type, it's very difficult to do. This is a records room. Yeah, the mundane parts of keeping records on our population. It right now is too small. So what you've got to do is you're going to have to expand that too. So there's many types of areas in this facility that are going to have to be expanded, not just adding cells. And you can hear the money then falling as we add more cells to this facility. It's going to be a bigger amount. Who's in jail? I want to deal with jail trustees because we all know that we have jail trustees. Why do you have jail trustees? There's a very good reason. First of all, they're housed in a different area of the facility. This is different from the other pods, the other housing areas for the inmates. They reduce the costs of operating the jail and of departmental operations. If you didn't have them, you would have to pay for them out of some other budget. Let's take a look. Food service. If you didn't have the people to work in the kitchen, you'd have to hire somebody to do it. You'd either have to have it catered by an outside firm or an outside firm come in to do it, or you'd have to hire workers to come in and replace those people who are doing that work. You have jail housekeeping. Those are people who take care of the sweeping, the cleaning, all that type of work. There is a parish in this state that hires an outside firm to do it. Jail maintenance, yes, the painting, the taking care of the maintenance aspects of the facility. You got to have that done. Vehicle maintenance, you need to take care of the transport vehicles. And also you can take care at the same time of Sheriff's Department vehicles. So they take care of the cleanup, the maintenance, and the keeping of the vehicles. Training center, we have a very large training center here. Somebody needs to take care of that. If you didn't have those people, you'd have to hire somebody to come in and mow, clean, and take care of that facility. And special service. Yes, the Sheriff's Department provides inmates for special projects. Right now, I believe it's in some of the maintenance, grounds maintenance, and also we have some in the what are the areas? Drainage. That's right. I couldn't think of the name. What it is in the drainage work. So they're providing also services to the county that's reducing the cost of operations. Now, all of these inmates, not all of them, are inmates from the state. In other words, state inmates. Some of them are local. Why do you use people who are sentenced to do this? Because under law, you can't compel people who are not sentenced to do work. That's why you have to have sentenced people. So it's a mix that we have in the trustees of sentenced state and sentenced local people.
Well, you might ask who else is in the jail. Okay, we've talked about the trustees, but who else comprise the population that we're addressing? Well, about 230 or so on any given day are inmates who were arrested locally within Ascension Parish. Let's see if we're going to have a... About 22 female inmates, actually, are housed in another parish. This number, as I understand it from Warden Weber, has been spanning anywhere from about 11 or 12 women to as high as, I believe, 26 to 29 that are outsourced to another facility nearby, actually St. Charles, who have room to house the women. And we might add that this is at a cost of $22 a day to the parish. Of this population, 87% are untried, which means they are all detainees, that we call them, or pretrial detainees, in that they have not had their cases resolved. 84% of these have been in jail at least once before. And that is what the term of recidivism links to, that 84%. They are all recidivists in that they have returned, many of whom have returned 9, 10, 11, 12 times on very, very similar offenses. Some of the individuals who are arrested and go through intake at the jail may stay only a few hours, or some may stay only a few days. This particular point addresses the concern by many that crime is escalating in this community, but because of the overcrowdedness at the jail, those individuals are not punished adequately or do not stay in jail. Our particular statistic here really relates to that population who can effectively meet the terms of monetary bail or pay a bail bondsman to get them out of jail. Very few in this population go on to state prison and the State Department of Corrections. Substance abuse is a recurring theme among the population, whether it is involved in the commission of the offense at the time or it is an underlying cause of the criminal behavior.
I want to add to that. I think in our discussions that we've had recently, that you paid from the first of the year to the current period to about September, you paid about $90,000 to house the females out of this parish. Last year you paid about $70,000. That's a lot of money that we're paying for housing people out of parish. Thinking about inmates. A lot of times we think about inmates as just a mass of people. But I'm going to argue that there's probably three groups of inmates. Let's imagine taking the jail population and putting them in three corners of this room. Over there is the A group. That's the guy that says, the first time in, he says, I'm not coming back. This is it. I've learned my lesson. There are a few of those. Yes, there are some of those people. They're in the A group. They're not coming back. Over in this corner of the room is the C group. Those are the guys that have been in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. Some of them are burnt out alcoholics. Some of them will never learn their lesson. Some of them have mental problems. But they're coming back and back and back. Now, the B group, that's the middle group. That's the group that if we did something a little bit better, we might be able to get them out of jail. Remember one of the key concepts that we had? The purpose of pretrial condition for people is to keep them crime-free and showing up for the trial. Some people get out on bond. Some people who don't have economic capabilities stay in jail. What about the two people that perhaps, let's choose three people who got in an argument. The officer is called and he comes out and arrests two of those people. So two people go to jail. One of them's got a little bit more money than the other one. He gets out. His colleague there, who didn't have as much money, he stays in. Well, both of them have the same risk. The only reason that they stay in, he stays in, he doesn't have the money to get out right this moment. So when we begin to think about this middle group of people, there's a variety of conditions and a variety of characteristics that affect this middle group. What we should be doing is thinking about how we can affect this middle population so that they don't get to the C group, and that we can address them safely so that they show up for trial and stay out of trouble. And we can do that. Our goal is to whittle on that B group, not to give up on the C group, but to work on that B group and to see if we can move more of those out safely so that they show up for trial. Do you want to know the answer to that one? It's evidently yes. Can we do 100% right this minute? No. Will you ever do 100% of that B group? I don't know. But you can do a better job than we're doing right now, and we're going to look at how we can do that. Every time we work on this B group, we reduce the impact of the costs. That's where we're going.
Well, how did we get to this point, and how does the jurisdiction come to be overcrowded in its correctional facilities? Let's see if we got a little zinger here. Okay. Well, I'll just talk it through and see if it's... Apologize. Okay. One of the ways is to avoid or to simply not implement a supervised pretrial release program so that it can take care of those 87%, for instance, in the Ascension Parish Jail, who are in a pretrial status. Let's see. Another way is to not have offered or constructed a strong continuum of supervision for locally sentenced offenders. Now, when we speak of locally sentenced offenders, we're talking about that group who are actually sentenced to serve their time in the parish jail. And that group, I believe, looking at our data, represented about 5% of the total population. Persons who are sentenced to local time, which does not exceed 12 months of a sentence, usually are a very, very good candidate for a structured community-based supervision program that provides accountability, provides sanctioning or punishment, but at the same time allows that individual to retain employment or to get employment, and lets that person also, with this kind of employment and capability, to actually satisfy a number of financial obligations as well, court costs, fines and fees, child support, a number of other things. And another way that we fill up a jail real quickly is to allow unsentenced inmates to stay too long. That is, their period of pretrial detention exceeds what is condoned in the ABA guidelines or avoids the compliance with the speedy trial rules. And we do, in the Ascension Parish Jail, have several inmates, pretrial defendants, who have exceeded the reasonable barometer of time. What are we going here? What's that line?
You all just be patient with this.
Sorry about that.
Codes in it, and it's sort of affecting the whole thing.
We apologize. Another sure way is to possess insufficient correctional programs to reduce the recidivism. As we know, and we mentioned in one of the prior slides, offenders come to us in corrections with a number of problems, long-standing problems. Many of those problems relate to childhood. Many adult offenders were prolific juvenile offenders. They come with histories of educational failure. They come with addictions. They come with mental health, poor physical health, as well as a number of other problems such as being irresponsible, not paying one's bills, being involved in domestic confrontations, a number of things that there actually are therapeutic interventions or programs to help address. When these things are not available in the community or the correctional facility has not been able to offer programs, and many times with pretrial population, it's the view that because of the volatile nature of that population and the length of stay, that it may not even be reasonable to program pretrial defendants in jail. But we do know that regardless whether they're in jail or out on bail, for instance, or out on supervision, that up to this point there have not been sufficient therapeutic or educational interventions to help reduce the recidivism rate and to help reduce the cause of their criminality.
Status of jail population reduction strategies. A lot on this slide, and there's a reason there's a lot on this slide. Take a look at all the considerations for things that could be considered to reduce some of the jail population. Therefore, reduce the demand for jail beds, current and future. What's important to look at is what currently exists. Not very much currently exists. Are the things that we have right now, are they adequate? Well, you can see that this is new. We have something that already exists here in the prosecutor's office. It's limited because of limited funds. And we have a new process down here. This has been recently instituted. It's new. Parish funding, is it needed? These are just estimates. In some conditions, they may not be needed. So this is to give you sort of an overview of what we might be able to approach. Many of these programs are less expensive than building jail beds. Some of them can be offender self-paid. There are a lot of programs in this country that deal with pretrial defendants that are paid by the offender. You'd be surprised how quickly some of them can come up with the money to pay for their own pretrial release. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of bond. It can be their daily operations.
I'd like to add one point.
Sure.
I'd like to add one point as it does relate to sanctioning in the community. It's an interesting scenario, and I'll give you a little bit of a vignette. In my government career, I dealt with, as I said, I was a warden for 8.5 years of adult male maximum security facility, and many times these inmates would rather commit an infraction so they could not be released at their time, or they would not be eligible for parole yet, or a parole hearing yet, in that they knew that the parole order that they were going to receive was likely going to have a number of conditions of supervision. And those conditions of supervision are difficult in certain aspects. Many times offenders would rather lie around jail or prison, and what in our vernacular we call it the 3 hots and the cot syndrome. They would rather do that than have to be accountable in the community, accountable and responsible. We can make community-based supervision for the very same offenders very, very difficult. My gosh, they'd have to get up early in the morning. They would have to go to work. They'd have to pay their bills. They'd have to pick up their children from school. They'd have to be a good parent. They would have to control their anger. And we could go on with these things. But it is very, very difficult for people who have had a very unstructured life and have basically had a problem with what we would all expect to be relatively routine on a daily basis. Offenders find it very difficult to do. And I've had I know of many, many cases that offenders will request to get off of community supervision and go back to jail because it's just not as difficult as it is to have to be in the community and comply with a structured supervision plan.
Another aspect just to think about, that if jail were so effective, in stopping recidivism, we wouldn't have people in sometimes for this many times coming back. As Nancy mentioned, we get 3 hots in a cot. That's 3 hot meals in a cot. Talking to your buds, talking to your buddies, playing games, and watching as the world turns. Well, there's no constitutional right to watch as the world turns. My feeling is we need to have tough thinking about dealing with people who come into the criminal justice system. Sitting in jail, taking up a jail bed, using our expenses is not always the tough thinking way to deal with them. My way, and Nancy and I talk about, is that we ought to expect them to change behaviors too. There is no reason that on pretrial release they can't be on substance abuse monitoring. That's the beginning of a change of behavior, to make sure that they're drug-free and also showing up in time for trial. So there's a number of these things that we can address. What to do first? Well, there's a lot of things we just showed you. What would you do first out of all this? You're going to just prioritize them and do them one at a time? No, there's multiple agencies involved. There's multiple things that you can do to begin to reduce the impact. We're going to take you through the status of the recommendations that were made in the report and talk about some of that at this time. Action steps. Parish should establish a criminal justice coordinating committee. That's been done. They've had 6 meetings. And the impact of just those 6 meetings has been significant. Bobby Weber has experienced at the jail a reduction in jail population several times already. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I can tell you most of the people who are concerned about Hurricane Katrina and that we would have an explosion in jail population, myself included, but we found that has not happened. And through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, meeting 6 times, we have been able to restructure some things with the help of Ricky and Craig Burko from Probation and Parole, and of course with the blessing of the judges and everybody involved in that committee. We have been able to move our probation and parole violators out of the jail at a quicker rate than we have before. And within the last couple of months, we experienced a drop in our population. Some days I've had 15 empty beds, and you haven't heard me talk about that in years. Now, I can't say that today, but it's been helpful.
So, we've seen then, the committee's been formed. Positive things are happening. Yes, some of the options are beginning to make a dent. And as we move forward, there's a possibility we can make a bigger, even bigger dent. Recommendation 2 is that the parish criminal justice system should contract with consultants from the National Center for State Courts to work with the court system. Why would we suggest bringing in this group, the National Center for State Courts? 1, they have a great reputation. 2, they have a lot of experience in working with court systems. They go further than what we're able to do. 3, when you're working with judges, remember that we have the separation of powers. The judges come under a lot of the state oversight, under the state court system, whereas a lot of our other criminal justice agencies fall under the local government. So there is a reason for bringing in people who know judges and talk to judges and can help them look at aspects in the system. I feel that we found enough to suggest that help would be beneficial for this part of the system. So we're waiting on that. We can't do everything at once. The report's only been out a few months. So the fact that it said waiting doesn't mean it won't happen. Review of the study's recommendations in the recommendation 3, process should be developed under leadership of the District Attorney's Office to deal with some issues of time in case processing. That's been happening. What we've got is we've had already an increased frequency of IDB, which is the Indigent Defense Council Board, and with the DA attorneys visiting the jail, moving cases through more quickly. So that's begun to occur. So we're beginning to see that by meeting together and by looking at these various things, we're having an impact.
Our fourth recommendation, and one that we really highlight in this entire study, is probably the most important, is that a distinct and separate pretrial release services unit consisting of at least 2 officers should be created for the purpose of supervising a portion of that 87% of the standing population who are pretrial. Pretrial services, really, for those of you who know anything about probation and parole, pretrial supervision functions in very, very similar manner. It's just at the front end of the system. It is driven by 2 principles, the first being that the offender, you want to avoid failure to appear at all court proceedings and trials. So the first principle is to ensure that that person, in fact, does appear at all the court proceedings and trials. The second principle is that of reoffending and ensuring that that individual, while out on supervision awaiting trial, does not commit any more offenses. Alan, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just...
A little slow, okay. And the status, let me just mention, the status of this recommendation is that it is being considered, and as a matter of fact, it really did reign primary in the discussion yesterday at the Criminal Justice Council meeting. The Sheriff's Office is considering how to design and implement this program, looking actually at the first of the year for implementation startup. Recommendation 5, community-based supervision for parish inmates should be expanded, enhanced, and strengthened. We've certainly alluded to this up to this point. We feel that the ability to supervise in the community both the pretrial defendants as well as the parish inmates should actually be a priority, in that any supervision will obviously provide an empty bed for an offender who is not amenable to such supervision. We would recommend that the supervision is structured, it's highly accountable. It could even involve 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week actual surveillance, as well as participation in different kinds of programs that meet the needs of that offender and are geared to addressing the nature of the criminality of these individuals. One of the things that we have found in reviewing this particular recommendation, that the criminal justice community has really not joined in partnership with some of the community-based resources, some nonprofit organizations, to really provide what we would call a continuum of care and supervision in the community. Thus, an individual, rather than being in a jail bed as the only sanction, has access to structured sanctions and good strong supervision, but outside of the confines of the jail bed. What am I doing not right? I'm not hitting it. And this is something that is still under consideration and discussion. Recommendation 6, the criminal justice community should expand electronic monitoring services. Let me just briefly back up to say something about electronic monitoring. Electronic monitoring has been a very popular sanction program that has been relied upon by states and counties, parishes, pretty much for the last 15 to 17 years. It is regarded as the most effective enforcement or surveillance mechanism that is available to monitor offenders in the community. We feel that given the proper profile of the offenders that might need this 24-hour-a-day surveillance, and it is available in this community, and as a matter of fact, it's been available for about 10 years through a private resource, River Parish security systems. Status is that it may be included in the proposed enhanced pretrial release program. We would hope that when pretrial release is implemented, that it would include this whole range of graduated sanctions, so that on the most severe or the most stringent supervision, you would have electronic monitoring, which has the capacity to observe that offender and limit his or her mobility in the community. That would be the most severe of those sanctions. Still with jail being a backup if, in fact, an individual failed the conditions of supervision. But we would have on the low end, is that what I'm saying here? Okay. We would have on the low end, for instance, contacting the pretrial services officer maybe several times a month, maybe participating in self-help groups like NA, AA, and managing, and very importantly, to retain employment. That might be on the lower end of the scale. Recommendation 7. Local resources should be considered as a way to expand community supervision. Well, I think I pretty well just defined that. And that, too, will be considered, hopefully, in the design of this pretrial release supervision that we have recommended is implemented through the aegis of Sheriff Wiley. Recommendation 8, Ascension Parish should access all sources of external monies for the criminal justice system and probably for all of your departments, but they should access all those that are available. We have submitted one very substantial grant application at this juncture. That is something that our consultant firm does. We research the availability of funding through foundation sources as well as federal government and state government resources during the year. One of the things that I can add for those of you who are aware of the grant application being submitted is that at this juncture, all federal grants have been either suspended or stalled due to the need to provide relief for the target areas in the country, unfortunately, since Labor Day weekend. So a lot of this money has been diverted for that purpose, so we just don't know yet. That's the answer to that. We've been in contact with our federal contacts at the Department of Justice, who's assured us that Ascension Parish will not be forgotten, and its criminal justice system is still very important. So as we say that, we are also looking at the availability of upcoming funds that have been announced for the federal fiscal year 06 when they become available.
In summary, then, what we've looked at is to think about how to hold down costs. That another addition to the jail will require expansion of other areas, and it's not going to be just simply putting in a couple units. That also, another concept that we've covered is that if we focus on that A, B, C groups, those three groups, then the remaining group in jail will be a harder population. They won't be as amenable to be put in the inexpensive dormitory type of building. They'll require, then, if we are successful, we're going to require then probably a reasonably secure type of facility in addition to that. Other aspect is we're seeing impact of what's happening right now. We're beginning to see some reduction in the population. I feel that we both feel that there's much more that can be done to hold down the growth of the population. Yes, you will probably need to add more space in the future. Before you add that more space, we need to make sure that we have our efficiencies and economies in place. We may be able to forestall the addition of space for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. If we do that, then you can begin planning financially and fiscally, putting some away in the kitty to begin reducing some of the impact of that future need to build those sales. So that's sort of where we're coming from. We see that there's a financial possibility with these recommendations to help this parish.
Let me just add another point to that which supports this, and that is if there were new jail beds available today, if we had an infusion of another 200 or 250, those beds would be filled. And they would be filled because of the current status of the criminal justice response to criminal behavior. Once we get the system cleaned up, so to speak, and well-functioning, then we know, or can be assured, that each individual that are in those jail beds should be in those beds. We like to liken jail beds to a premium. They are a luxury in many jurisdictions. But it is very important that, obviously, that the population that needs to be in those beds is in that bed. However, let me just say, as it relates to future building, there's no jurisdiction has ever been able to build their way out of this problem. However, with a balance of good management in the criminal justice system, community-based supervision, being able to support the jail supervision, that in fact, and a balance of available bed space, systems have been very successful and have gotten out from under the overcrowding issues. We thank you for this time. I would guess that Mr. Chairman would entertain any questions at this point. This is just, kind of a skimming what the study provided in terms of information, and for those of you who have not read it, I would encourage you to read it if you are interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ensko. Thank you, Dr. Beck. Before we have any questions, I would like to invite Sheriff Wiley, if you have any comments or any additions you'd like to make to this discussion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, of course, the PhDs can say it a lot more intelligently than me. What we're doing with this Criminal Justice Committee, which is an offshoot of the study that was commissioned, a joint study, or joint funding by my department and this council. The Criminal Justice Committee was an outgrowth of that, and as the doctor said, 6 or 7 meetings, and there's been some encouraging developments and changes, cultural changes. You don't have to wait long in the Morning Advocate tomorrow, the next day, or 3 days from now, and you'll read about our neighbors in Livingston Parish and the situation they're in. I don't know that, certainly I'm not taking criticism of them, but I don't know that they have dialogued as much as we have. I'm talking about all the players, and the criminal justice system has many, many components to it, and it's a flawed system. I will say that. However, we are addressing those flaws. Some of them are constitutional, some of them are beyond our control, and some of them we definitely can do better at, and we've seen some evidence of that. The next step, ladies and gentlemen and council members, the next step for us is to start engaging another sheriff or another jail to put males at $22 a day. Now, we have not done that, and we don't have any immediate plans to do that, but the obvious is if we don't continue to address this, and it's incumbent upon me as a sheriff and the keeper of the jail, and quite frankly incumbent upon you as the owner of the jail, is that we don't position ourselves to be deliberately indifferent to overcrowding and for fear of a major incident that would happen in a jail that would, upon reflection in the court of law, would show that we were indifferent, because fire marshals set numbers, Mr. Chairman and council members, and they're not arbitrary numbers. They are numbers that we should follow. We implemented 7 years ago a pretrial release program. I'd recognize Paul Hall, who is a long-term employee of the Sheriff's Department. We had grand plans then to do a lot of the model, the JCI model, and quite frankly, the numbers just ate him up. And so what we do, ironically, is we have over 100 officers in the Sheriff's Department who every day enforce the laws, and one of their missions is to incarcerate lawbreakers. We have one person every Monday through Friday all day that tries to get some out, to the ebb and flow of it. And he's done it, quite frankly, with great success, and I add this to it. He's always done it with full concert with the judges. It's not an arbitrary decision that the sheriff's office or he makes. The jail that we run in the building that you own is an accredited jail. We're only one of 5, Bobby? 6 sheriff's offices in the state of Louisiana that have a American Correctional Association accreditation. It could not be run better, policy-wise, facility-wise, etc. The problems are obvious, Mr. Chairman. I have not come before you and pounded my fist and made demands, if you will, or because I recognize the other problems and challenges that we all have in this parish, and also recognize, quite frankly, the appetite or lack of it that John Q. Citizen may have to expend more of their hard-earned tax dollars for a jail. The important point that Dr. Insco said was, as well, if tomorrow we snapped our fingers and there were 200 more beds, I could in theory be back here in a year saying, guess what? We had all that backlog, we're doing a better job on prosecution, and we're approaching overcrowded again. So we're not trying to throw money at this in a capital outlay. I will look you in the eye and tell you that it's an inevitable occurrence that at some point in the future we will have to expand this prison. It will definitely happen. We're buying time now, and we're trying to culturally change how we do the process. I would recognize Councilman Valentine, who has served on the council on this committee, First Assistant DA Ricky Babin, and of course Chief Bacalai and Warden Weber, and others, Don Heisel, that have diligently made all these meetings, and with they will agree with some degree of success on getting parole, as Bobby said, probation parole, Craig Berto, getting judges, getting prosecutors, getting indigent defenders, getting sheriff personnel, all on the same page on trying to not repeatedly do things that delay the process. And we've had some success with that. Okay? Thank you for the opportunity to address.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Shakespeare.
Thank you, Sheriff, for being here. I was just curious as to, we realize that we're biding time now and everything, that inevitably, as you said, there will be some expansion. Can we get, let's say, a 5-year plan from you guys in the Sheriff's Department as to what are you looking for 5 years down the road, so that if there's more land that needs to be acquired, if there's more spaces that needs to be done, that we can start, as we say, putting away for a rainy day, or start making our plans to get something down there where we're not going to look up 4 or 5. We do all these programs, look up 5 years, and now all of a sudden we have to do something. And I don't want to get put in that situation.
2 points on that. One, veteran members of this council will remember several years ago, this council voted to authorize me and my designees to engage an adjacent property owner. And I assigned literally 2 detectives full-time for 2 weeks trying to do the estate, trying to find out who the owners were. And quite frankly, short of expropriation, which I know is a very unpopular word, the Donaldsonville side of the facility, Best Western, the hotel side, is not a viable option because of that. I also want to, I guess, educate you respectfully that in the event that parish government had $5 million for a significant expansion, I know that you don't, but in the event that you did, in a hypothetical, then you have the recurring cost of the sheriff staffing it. And I would tell the world that I'm not in a position. We have 270 inmates or so that spent the night in the Donaldsonville facility last night. And if we added another, I wouldn't want to do much more. Let's say we added another 250. The salaries, recurring expense on salaries for me is over $2 million. It costs you about $1 million or so, I think, a year to maintain the facility, and it costs me over $2 million. When you X out the revenue that I make off of Department of Corrections inmates, state inmates, which right now is about 7% of the population. We have dwindled it down for obvious reasons because of the pretrial number. It's still costing me personnel-wise way over $1.5 million. It's part of what I have to do, but that was the Sheriff Graves' concern as well. If you follow the dialogue in the paper with the Livingston model, is that they're wrestling with expansion, and Sheriff Graves is saying you can expand it all you want. I can't staff it unless we do a big model that takes care of not only the facility construction and maintenance, but also the staffing of it. So the 5-year plan, that's doable. to give you something of a projection, that's doable. The immediate plan is the pretrial release program of substance. And I think with Councilman Valentine and Don Heisel and our committee, and I was telling the DA this earlier, is that we think we might have a plan on that. Bobby Weber and Tony Bacala, a plan on being able to fund at least that part of it, which to do it right, at least in the introduction, would be 2 full-time people and a clerical. And we would take 25 or 30 clients, and it would be intensive supervision of the example that was put on a program, which is interacting with educators, interacting with substance abuse, interacting with other self-help programs, interacting with job placement, and also drug testing of significance and home visits of significance and things like that. The problem is, and Craig Berto will tell you, who's a probation parole officer for many years, is that he could be a real good probation parole officer if he had about 60 clients. How many do you have? 180 that are under his jurisdiction. I can remember when I started in law enforcement a while back, we had 1 probation officer in Ascension Parish. How many do we have now? We have 9 that handle these. And what Nancy also said was not too many of our inmates go to prison. They typically do their time, go to court, and are given probation, those that are adjudicated. So they're given probation, and that's where that's where the funnel hits again with the state system, and of course the state has funded it significantly with 9 probation officers, but nevertheless you can try to imagine how you keep track of 180 people diligently and effectively.
Mr. Todd Lambert.
Yeah, Sheriff, well, if we had to expand the jail where it's at now, how many beds could we put? Have y'all looked at the,
Yes.
like I said, architecture on?
Yes, we researched several models in the last 4 or 5 years, and Bobby Weber would be better maybe to, Bobby, if you want to come up and expound a little bit on 2 or 3 of the models that we have.
Thank you, Councilman. We looked at, like you said, several models, maybe some modular designs. With the existing jail, of course, management, we'd like to try to keep it all on the roof without having to build separate. We could take the female wing and the trustee wing. We could expand those out and take maybe the drug rehab dormitory that we have there and expand it out. We feel we can put comfortably there probably 120 beds to maybe 150 more beds there. Because we still have a lot of yard up front if you come to the jail, and I know you do. You see the big rec yard out front, because that's exactly what it's used for. We wouldn't want to expand too much. And as you know, the fence line is the property line. I researched that, so it's not like we can go even a foot outside the fence line. That is it. And of course, then we have the problems of expanding all the other things that we need as well, such as the treatment plant that's been giving us a little trouble.
Did we ever get a price on additions?
Right, we did get some price, and the price I'm going to quote you, I think, is very, very, very low, because as Dr. Insko and Beck said, that's not considering the expansion of the core of the facility. It was just the modular design cells that would be brought to your site, dropped down to put inmates in, and it was, I think, somewhere like $1.5 million to $2 million. And please don't quote me on that, but I think I'm close. But what we're saying is, with that many inmates coming in, we need parking, we need more laundry, we need bigger kitchen, all that kind of stuff, visitation.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hillisbeck.
Has it been looked at, Bobby, to expand vertically?
You know, a lot of people have asked me about that, and people have told me before that expanding that jail vertically is possible. But when we look at the blueprints from the original expansion, it doesn't talk anything about it being able to expand on top of CC2, which is our general population area. And if we did that some kind of way for some length of time, I would have to take that 188 inmates and move them somewhere else while that expansion project is going on. So I don't know if that's viable. And plus, I thought that building at one time was able to go up, but several people told me it's not. We would have to go out rather than up.
Mr. Valentine.
Yeah, Warden, while you're there, maybe you might want to touch on some of the discussion dealing with the women inmates that we have, that essentially the council or sheriff would like to touch on that and kind of talk about the surveillance and the the comparison of cost to?
Well, I talked to Anthony yesterday from finance, and I just wanted to find out how much we've been spending. And last year, I know y'all spent around $74,000 to hold those females in St. Charles, and over $90,000 already this year. And I'm just a big advocate of doing an enhanced pretrial release program. And I think when we do create this program, if we do, we need to target that female population first. I just know that with the 16 females we have in Donaldsonville and the 12 that we have in St. Charles, we could get them out. We could get those 12 out and bring them home, and not look to send any more down to St. Charles and complete that savings, because of the fact that women generally don't. They're not a big flight risk. They're not usually in jail for violent crimes, and they generally would show up with just a small amount of supervision. So I can't see why we can't take that population, first of all, and just bring them home, bring them back from St. Charles, and put them in this pretrial release program and stop spending that $22 a day to send them down there. I just think that's very important. Then we could try to hit the male population with the inmates that we feel meet the criteria for not being a flight risk, and that would likely show up for court and won't offend again. I think it's a very popular program that's been used extensively throughout the country. It just hasn't caught on much in Louisiana.
Another thing, building on the electronic monitoring issue that we talked about at length yesterday, and we've explored it, the courts, the DAs, etc., since its creation, and it's been many years that you've had the home incarceration anklets and bracelets. The dilemma is simple. Parish government, you saw the numbers there. 87% of our jail population is pre-trial. So you are paying me $3.50 a day, as per state law, per diem for pre-trial inmates. Well, to get them out, and for you to pay, in lieu of the $3.50, for you to entertain paying the going rate of daily $9 or $10 for home incarceration, obviously that math is troubling, or should be. But what George is, where he's headed is, you're paying $22 a day for the 10 to 15 that are typically rolling in St. Charles, and we clearly think that's an option. That the math works for us as well, and then maybe once and for all we can get some. There's a vendor here tonight who's been in this business a while and well known. That maybe there's a way that we can do something here and whittle down if we get volume together on this home incarceration. I believe in it. It's just not been a viable option because of the indigent nature, or because of the $300 a month that it would literally cost for the individual or for the parish government. You want to? Yes.
Just one point. As Warden Weber said, women do very, very well on community-based supervision, whether it's at the front end of the system or the back end. Most of them have the primary interest is to return to home to their children. I had the good fortune, though some days it was the bad fortune, of managing women in the state prison facility, and that was their major concern. Also, jail or prison was probably the best life many of them had, as in, they had been on the streets for years and years. But another important thing about female offenders is they tend to use a lot of precious dollars for medical care. In the fact that in custody, the jurisdiction must pay for defendants, inmates, medical care, that is another positive point that needs to be looked at as we release these folks to the community. Once in the community, they can access medical support, medical services in qualifying for Medicaid. As long as individuals are incarcerated, they cannot receive the jurisdiction, or that individual cannot receive Medicaid dollars to pay for medical care. And I'm sure that Warden Reba, and as well as Sheriff Wiley, will certainly support here that their medical costs for that population are quite substantial.
Mr. Samoy.
Yeah, gentlemen, Ms. Fontenot, right now, the situation that we face today is either one of two things. We can either take a proactive step or sit back and take a reactive step later on. I've asked Councilman Valentine to sit in as representative of the council on the committee, and I want to commend Bobby and the team for getting together and getting this team rolling, looking at the recommendations from the study. Bobby, how long do you think that it would take your committee to work through the list of recommendations that's been provided by Justice Concepts in terms of getting back to the council or implementing some of the doables. You know, and I understand what Sheriff Wally said as far as the PhDs and all that. We need to look at what's doable versus what you put on paper and what we can do immediately to hopefully make some changes to buy us a little bit more time. Because when I say proactive, we're right on the edge of being reactive. I believe I'm scared. So because any given day you can be over, and we know that. So it's very important that the committee, I think the committee work through these recommendations to see what we can implement as quickly as possible so that we'll have a clear direction. I also don't think it would be a bad idea for us to create a jail expansion line item and start budgeting some monies toward that so that we would have some monies in hand to hopefully use as a match to get some federal dollars too. Because the finest all machine is going to be needed, is going to need to be enlarged because of the influx of population in Ascension Parish, period. I don't think anybody can dispute that. So we know it's coming. It's a statutory requirement on our part to offer the facility, and like the sheriff said, nobody wants it because it's additional dollars. We budgeted 1.3 for the jail this year, and like the sheriff said, he's got $2 million. Well, we don't want to expand, but statutorily we have to. So with that, Bobby, I'd like to see your committee work diligently going through all these to see what we can implement. If there's anything from the mental health standpoint, and President, I think we got some program that might be coming through the mental health program as far as the addictions or something that might help out. But anyway, the faster we work through this to see what we can implement, I think the better off we would be as far as having a clear direction and how fast we really need to work toward it.
I think, Bobby, we still got a conflict, don't we, between the state Department of Health and Hospitals and being willing to interact with our inmates and provide that service they provide to other citizens. I don't think we've resolved that, have we yet, your coordinating committee?
No, sir. As a matter of fact, Mr. President, that has not been brought up in the coordinating committee. But we do know that the state will not see an act of inmate that's been in our jail. You're talking about the mental health aspect of it. If he has not had an open case at the mental health center prior to coming to jail. And we have just been told also, I guess there's going to be cuts all throughout the states. They did just quit providing us with our tests for TB, so we're just trying to figure out where we're going to get those to test the inmate population with. So we've been completely cut out on that aspect also.
Well, we do have, Jerry, obviously we have a doctor now at the prison that we didn't have a year ago available. We also have parish employees who work from the health unit to be there to work with the sheriff's department. We're just hoping to be able to get some mental health. I mean, our parish does it. We provide, through our tax, but also the state's supposed to be there's really a state responsibility, health and hospital, and as we pointed out, many of these people in prison will end up going to the state system. I guess then they would qualify. I don't know if they even qualify then if they need mental health counseling. But they really are a lot of those people who should be getting that help through the State Department of Health and Hospitals. So at this time we have not been able to make that happen. And as Bobby pointed out, the state special session now, they're cutting these areas significantly, and we're not sure how deep those cuts will be as pertains to this particular area.
Whether we were in a boom or a bust, the State Department of Health and Hospitals has never recognized what we feel is a fundamental responsibility to treat citizens of Louisiana, the population being those that are incarcerated. And obviously, you don't need to be a PhD to recognize that there's obviously a common thread of drug addiction, alcoholism, and mental illness. And, the system has provided varying degrees, but we have provided substance abuse treatment. We have provided AA meetings and self-help programs in that regard. We have never gotten I know the members of media here, make sure you quote me correctly, the state of Louisiana Department of Health and Hospital has been woefully derelict in our case at least.
Thank you, Sheriff, for helping.
Mr. Savoy, you still have the
Yeah, one other thing that I want to hit on is something that Councilman Shakes and I talked about as far as the land, and Sheriff Waller was right. There's a couple of years ago, we gave them the green light to go and do their best to try to secure additional property on any corner of their property, and hopefully, we can't give up because, I mean, we are very limited, but we give them the green light and it just hadn't come around yet. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Fondo?
I just want to thank the sheriff and all those that are making the effort right now to go in another direction. One of my major things that I'd like to see is more help, more education, more programs that could maybe make a difference in some of these people's lives. I know we're not going to save them all, but we know that education makes a difference. And I think that if you had some sort of program with the bracelet type thing, where they would be more accountable, where they do have to go to work, where they do have to get up and operate their lives like the rest of us do, that would be a step in the right direction, and I support you 100%. Thank you.
And I guess finally, I personally want to commend the sheriff, Warden Weber, and the entire sheriff's department, because I've been to the jail, and I know that they're doing their very best to control the costs and to control what goes on there to kind of keep the dollars down. I'm very encouraged by this report and to know that there are alternatives that we have to building extra jail cells, putting more concrete and cinder blocks and bars in there. There are alternatives, and the committee continues to meet and look at some of those alternatives, and makes me feel good that at least we're getting there. And I really want to commend you all for your efforts. Sheriff Wiley.
One more thing for the record. In the course of our daily burden of managing our population, we have never, ever requested the release of a violent offender or a repeat drug offender or a sex offender. We have never, ever done that. That's why our numbers have continued to grow like they have. So by and large, it's going to be very dicey and very interesting and difficult to go try to find 50 more people in that jail that are eligible. And when we do, all the more reason why we need the intensive supervision with those people. All right? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Dr. Beck, just a final thought.
A closing thought for you. The Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee is that. It's for all the agencies in the criminal justice system. Not only will it help the jail, but working together with the district attorney, they will be able to improve other areas of the system. So when we begin to think about it, if we just expand that to thinking of how it would affect the workload of other people and through their participation, I think it will have a very broad impact. I commend them for that.
Thank you very much. All right, let's jump back then to item number 10, because I see Mr. Guidry.
Is number 9 here yet?
Can't find number 9.
What's up, Charles here?
No, Charles is number 10.
Oh, okay.
All right. Item number 10, FEMA Transitional Housing. Charles Guidry, Community Services Officer.
Thank you. Mr. President, Ms. Fontenot, Councilman, I apologize for not being in here when I was called earlier. I was in another meeting.
But wait an hour, so you...
they punished me. But anyway, last week, Parish President, the OEP Director, and myself had a meeting with FEMA and their contractor, which is IBM in Florida. And after a lengthy meeting, we realized there was challenges that we had in the parish. And of course, Parish President suggested that they bring it to you so you could hear about our challenges and hopefully help us resolve these challenges. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Arthur McClin with IBM, and he'll start the program off.
Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Arthur McLean. That's in Ascension Parish. That's tasked with identifying potential housing sites for the temporary housing of displaced individuals affected by Hurricane Katrina. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation to you this evening, and I'd also like to thank you for your continued support in this difficult time. And I want to make a personal thank you to you as a displaced individual from Orleans Parish in the state of Louisiana. It means a lot to me when we put individuals in temporary housing, because it brings the state of Louisiana that much closer to bringing ourselves back. We, for the past 2 months, have been working very diligently in Ascension Parish, and actually we have 2 other parishes. We have identified over 100 potential sites that could house temporarily displaced individuals. And what I wanted to make this presentation to you today is identifying 9 sites, undeveloped land, essentially, in the parish of Ascension that we feel the ones that we've seen up to date are the ones that we feel are highest priority sites. You have in front of you the 9. I think Mr. Guidry has developed a map that actually mapped these out. I don't know to show you where they are. And we have Wanda Zachary with FEMA to explain to you, to give you a range of possibilities that these sites can house. And also we have another team of individuals to answer any questions that you might have.
Hello, my name is Wanda Zachary, and I am your parish liaison for FEMA. And I just want to describe to you the 4 basic types of sites that we have. The first one being a private site, and that is if an individual has a damage to their home, they can put a temporary trailer on their land to where they can repair their home. Or if they have a friend or family that has lost a home and need a place to put their temporary housing on their land. And the second one is an existing commercial site, which is just what it says, existing sites in trailer parks. And the third is an expanded existing commercial site, which is existing commercial sites that will expand more pads to house more trailers. And the last one is a group site, and that's what we're trying to propose, to possible sites for a group site. Is there any questions?
Yeah, and I guess the questions will kind of lead the direction of where we're going, but I guess we could start here and we can...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and start off with Mr. Charles. All these contacts, these 9, have been contacted and are willing to give up their property for this?
They I've contacted all but 2, and they all have talked to FEMA, and they're all in agreement.
Mr. Guidry, please speak in the microphone just for the benefit of the cameras. Thank you.
And I guess the second part of this question is, being Ascension Parish does not have parish-wide sewer, are we talking about bringing in big, like mobile home lots in these properties?
Okay, well, of course, there's one on your list that's already set up. The very last one is set up as a mobile home park. And, of course, it's been closed. But the others would have to be, number 1, rezoned. Number 2, the infrastructure would have to be done. And, of course, FEMA would, at their option, take care of that.
But this is just a temporary site? Yes.
Yes.
We're talking about the infrastructure of MODADs, because we don't have a sewer system, so we put 100, 200, however many trailers on these 60 acres, we're going to have to put a MODAD or one community system.
Ms. Wanda?
The site that's existing in Baton Rouge, they created their own sewage treatment plant there.
But just a temporary 2-year.
Yes, they will build the site and then, of course, restore everything as well as can be back to prior site building.
Are they helping out in any infrastructure that's going to bring traffic really heavy? With our roads right now, we are behind probably 20 years on infrastructure on the roads. And if we bring in that amount of trailers in one location,
have a concern about the infrastructure on the highways.
That's a valid point, and I could find out exactly what they would be willing to do. I know the state is willing to offer a package deal like, so I can definitely check into that for you.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Our problem, just a comment on that, our problem that we have, all the people in Lamar-Dixon would be moved in to the existing sites that we've found, and but we have hundreds of people that are still living in homes and motels around the area in our parish. And of course, we were promised by FEMA that these people would be the only one taken care of. There would be no other people coming in from out of the parish.
Just a moment. Mr. Savoy had a question first.
Yeah, Charles, how many are we talking about? As far as taking care of the displaced people in Ascension Parish? You're talking about just housing those, finding housing for those that's in the parish right now?
That's what I was told by FEMA.
What's the anticipated number of these?
Wanda?
How many
There are
families?
thousands. There are approximately, I got a count from your parish guys of originally 5,000 people in your parish, so I'm assuming there's still several thousand being housed by family members and friends.
Okay. When we talk about temporary, give me your definition of temporary.
18 months.
Have you done any research on FEMA housing, temporary FEMA housing in Florida?
No, I have
They've
not,
been
personally.
in existence of 2 years now, and they're still, the temporary is still there 2 years later?
No, I haven't.
How about I say the definition of temporary? Also, as this council knows, this council passed a resolution back in September the 15th on how we, the condition that the parish is in from an infrastructure position. Councilman Lambert talked about roads. There's more than roads that we got to deal with. What about the schools? What about the roads? What about the sewer? And what about the law enforcement impact? Can we expect any help for all of these areas?
Well, as far as like the school system, the children are here already. So you're dealing with a lot of these issues already, but they do have wraparound services as far as providing aid to the people in the group sites. Bus service.
We need detailed information on how we can be assured that the schools, the roads, the sewer, and the law enforcement is going to be, there's going to be some help come in those areas to help those other agencies and departments handle the influx of them staying here temporarily 18 months. Also, Charles, you said that as of today, they would all have to comply with the existing regulations.
Yes.
Our subdivision regulations today.
Yes, they would.
All right. I'm going to speak on 2 sites because they're in my district and I know about them. I know what zone they're in. The 2 that's in my district would have to be rezoned, have to go through the process.
All, let me just clarify that, all except the last one would have to be rezoned.
Okay.
Every single one of them, because I got with Laverne and we looked at them and he has the, Lance gave him a breakdown of each one of them, and the only one that had applied to upgrade his mobile home park is the last one, and that's right across the river on the left. And of course, he hasn't done anything waiting on the parish.
Okay, that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hillensback?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my concern is, I'm not convinced yet that we do have a handle on the total number of displaced people out in the parish. And I'm not certain that if we would open this up, the control issue, how would we limit it just to those people that are now here in the Ascension Parish living with family members, friends, what have you. I'm just I want to know how do you come to that number, arrive at that number? And
Of how many displaced people are in your parish? I'm sure there's a filter system in our database that I can filter on their residents now. They ask them the damaged residents and where they are residing now. So I'm sure I can filter out all Ascension Parish residents now and be able to come up with a hard number on how many are in your parish to this date.
if we try to help those people that are already here, we can control that and not be additional people coming.
I can assure that. I can make sure that those people are on a list to transitional housing to be placed in these homes.
Mr. Valentine, you had a question?
Well, mine was piggybacking on mine will be piggybacking off of Doug's here, and I find it hard to believe, but this is one of the problems we have, and all the situations going on with FEMA, and people say FEMA's not doing this and doing that. I mean, here you come to this council looking with 9 places that you would like for us to do something, and we don't even know how many people in the parish, and now you're going to have to go back and filter something. And I understand that, but you're the liaison. We should have a number. I mean, all I've been seeing is we've had so many, and the parish president has been working diligently on getting those people out of Lamar Dixon that we had housed there. And it's a little, I guess, disappointing that you guys are coming here and giving us a list of properties, but we don't even have a clue. And I know the superintendent's here. I know we got children still going to school, and I'm sure they got a number of children that have increased. But then, I'm sure there are other displaced people. We had a school, I guess primarily for Lamar Dixon kids, and we pretty much filtered a lot of those into the parish, and we've shut that school down, right, Superintendent?
Shut down.
And so it's difficult because not everybody has children, so you can't, I'm sure you can base something off of that situation, but we need to know a number. I mean, I don't want to say, oh yeah, go out and see what you can do with these 9 pieces of land. Right. But it scares me when I see one of them 60 acres. That's just difficult.
Okay, can I just respond to that? I'll call the superintendent up here. They have a formula they use at the school that when I gave my first report of how many people was in the parish, and of course. Superintendent of School Robert Kluart can pretty well tell us exactly how many kids are still in the school. and with his formula, it's 13 to 15%. Your assistant told me. So if you do that, then that'll tell us how many people is still displaced because there's only 122 left at Lamar Dixon as of today.
I guess, Superintendent, do you have them to the point where you know if they're in temporary house or if they're in motels, if they're staying with friends? Do y'all have it down to that part? Or?
We had 22 students left from Lamar Dixon. That's the only shelter
right.
That I'm aware of that's operating. There is a shelter at the Dream Center.
In Downsville.
But it's a very small number there also. So I would assume the rest of them are living with family or friends.
Or purchased houses.
Or bought homes.
And that, or renting with somebody,
We got a significant number, I think, that have bought homes because I've had people call me and telling me that they are living in houses now. I don't have a magic number. I wish I could. And the 15 to 17%, what did Donald's? Apparently Donald's the one.
Yeah, Donald's the one that.
And 15 to 20% would be what population are you talking
about?
Well,
like I said, for instance, at the time you had 2,500 kids, 2,250 kids, and along with that, the formula he was using we came up with 16,500 extra people in the parish.
We basically look at populations for student populations make up about 25% of the total. If you say you got this many students in your school, you can look at it that being about 25%. But 75% of people do not have children in school. That doesn't necessarily mean that works out perfectly.
I understand.
That's just I think Donald gave you a roundabout figure there. We're down to about 1,000 students right now.
And I would tell you, as Orleans Parish, and I know you're from Orleans Parish, they're gonna, I think they're getting ready to open up some of the schools over there. I don't want to get into that, but they got some schools that are going to be opening up, apparently. But as they open up some more school sites, we found that people move away,
Right.
and that's what happened to us. When Jefferson opened up, it really took a lot of students out of our system, and then St. Bernard and Clackamas Parish both opened up some sites, and these are very small sites, but it will eventually take students back. But
Yeah, and that's my point. My point is I don't want us to base it off a student population, because Ascension Parish was attractive. There was a lot of connection between us and New Orleans, so a lot of the people that had children naturally wanted to locate here in Ascension Parish, so they found family or friends or whatever to do that. And I know they're going to get this information for us, but I mean, I would suspect that FEMA has a list, or they can go through and filter, and if they don't, shame on them, that are waiting for housing, that are residents of Ascension Parish. I mean, that's just basic. And if FEMA doesn't have that, I mean, it obviously reflects on the whole FEMA operation. And I just can't believe that we don't have that. I mean, we're estimating, that there are X number of people here. We don't even have a list. I mean, that's difficult. I'm not saying that we don't want to take care of the situation and the needs because of New Orleans is so close. But then again, there are parishes, and I think all of South Louisiana needs to help out. We want to do our share, but we certainly don't want to do the bulk of it just because we're Ascension Parish and we're close and with respect, because just like Superintendent said, they are opening schools, people are moving back, they're taking trailers down to New Orleans every day, and it would be hard pressed for us to open something up and then, it filter out fairly quick after all this, is done. So that's all.
Ms. Fontenot.
Well, I feel the same way that Mr. Hillensbeck and Mr. Valentine feel. We are a kind people in Ascension Parish, and we really want to help out those that are in need. The devastation affected all of us. Lots of us have family members like others that have had to come back home. But I have a problem with the fact that we've got a federal agency that's got money to spend, and there's a big nation around us, and yet they come to us, who's already overtaxed in our infrastructure. Our school systems were already busting at the seams. My grandson goes to one that the maximum is supposed to be 650. It was 910 prior to Katrina. So it was already overpopulated then. Now they come back and they tell us, so we make a resolution that we can't do the FEMA cities. And the reason we can't do this is because we don't have the structure to handle it. And that's the only reason. It's not because we're unkind, but because it is just wrong to do it, because we do not have the adequate facility equipment to man the big endeavor that it would take. We also now have sought out 108 trailer spots that we could put places on. I think that's very good and very kind upon our part to try to work out this and put 108 additional families in this community. Now we're coming with 137 plus acres. Exactly how many trailers will that entail? Then another one that's got 125 pads. And yet nobody can tell us how many people are living here, where they're living at, how many of them are children that are in the school system. I mean, I know that we have more children in the school system right now, but a lot of these people have bought homes. They're permanent residents now. So we don't even know if we have the people in this parish to even go into these places, because we do not know who's living in whose home or who's living in hotel rooms. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me to have a board of people here that's trying to run a community, to have somebody come and ask for our help and not bring us the information that we need to even make an educated decision. We don't know how many children, we don't know how many homes, we don't know how many, you're not even telling us how many trailers are going to be on here, what type of sewer systems. And let's talk about impact. We're fixing to try to tax this parish on impact fees. Okay? Now, we're going to bring all of these people in here with no impact fee at all, but they're going to impact our parish, and then we're going to turn right around and ask the citizens that are going to buy homes here to pay an impact fee. Something's wrong with this picture, and I'm not happy with it. And the reason I'm not happy, I'm willing to help, but somebody's got to bring us the proper information. And because this kind of stuff that's being done right now doesn't look like educated people put it together. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel.
Mr. President, I think you had something to add, and then we'll take some more responses.
This list you have here is a refined list. When they came in last week, obviously you have some of our citizens who capitalists and free enterprise people trying to make money on the opportunity. So I took the list that they had brought in, which is substantially larger than this, and said, no, look at traffic, look at schools. So we went through and refined a bunch of it. So it was in areas, I said, there's no way we can put any people on 42 or 73. We can't put trailers in those areas, trailer park, but we already have significant problems. So the instructions I gave them in preparing to come to you was to take the list that I hadn't already scratched out, and with the planning people and all, and say, tell us what you're expecting from the council, explain to them what you're asking for, the commitment that we will definitely take the people who are now in our school system, and as Robert said, the number's gone from about 2,100 can treated kids to about 1,000, 1,100 now, which probably means we have 3,500 to 4,000 people in the parish that weren't here. Now, that's not scientific. I asked months ago now, I guess, and I think Ms. Zachary, she thought she would give me a report which would address some of your concern. Because I said, just give me a report of the people who apply for individual assistance. So, and I don't know if it's a privacy issue, and Rhonda thought she could get it for me, but then she came back and said, no, the report we have is based on where they suffered the damage. But most people didn't apply for assistance where they suffered the damage because there was no home and they left their pie. They came to our parish, and I'm sure most of them applied for individual assistance here. So it makes sense to me that they just give us this report. And I said, we don't need to know the names. We don't need to know anything. Just give us that number. And she came back and said the report she had was one that was based on where they had came from. And so that was kind of frustrating. Yeah, where the property was damaged. So there was damage in St. Bernard. Well, that was the report they would give us, which doesn't help us. And so it is very frustrating, obviously, to try to, and I know there's some privacy issues at the federal level, but we've been through some debates here lately on public records, and in fact, some of this would be public records, that to where we could ask for this record, because I agree with members of the council, we at least need to have a number that is close to accurate, and I'll pay 25 cents a copy.
I'll pay $1.
I'll pay $1 even. I might pay $5 a page. If you could get us a report, and we don't want no name, race, sex. I don't think we just need to know. And somebody's got to know this. I mean, somebody's got to know this. Now, the superintendent, they got students registered, obviously, but that still doesn't help.
I kind of wanted to clarify, if you want to know a student school count, I mean, we obviously have that.
But we got some that don't have
location count, I mean, I can give you that, too. I, along with her, cannot divulge certain privacy
Not all these
information.
people have school kids in school.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, if the issue was how many students and where they at, where they located, rather, that's something I can definitely give you. Now, the other issues I can't help you with, but I can give you that.
This is reasonable, Wanda. So this, now...
What they ask for on the PPI is
what's
damage,
the PPI?
and that's a pre-placement interview for damaged property, because that's where FEMA goes and assess their damaged property. Then if they're getting a travel trailer or, transitional housing, they ask where they want it to be delivered. There's nowhere that they really,
When
I
I go
can get
apply
you
for
the numbers.
individual assistance and I say mail my check to
well,
the
that's where,
address of the Ascension Parish, I'm not going to mail it to
That's
St.
where I'm
Bernard
gonna
if
go
I
in
don't
and-
have a place left to get the mail.
that's where I'm going to go in and filter out and try to pull that number out for you on the total people that are asking for assistance to be taking place in Ascension, whether it be by check or transitional housing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Byriga?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do y'all have an estimated number of density per acre that y'all planning to put?
I think the range that we use is 5 to 8 mobile homes per acre and 12 to 15 travel trailers per acre.
And last question, do y'all have any plans? I see some of these locations are pretty rural. Do you have any plans for transportation or services or anything? Can y'all elaborate on that?
On all group sites, they provide wraparound services, which is meals, usually for the first 30 days till they familiarize themselves with the locations. Sometimes it'll extend. Bus service, laundry service.
Is that just for 30 days?
Oh, no. That's continuing. The meals are usually for 30 days, but sometimes they extend longer than 30 days. And like the Groom Road site, they have a post office there, job fair tent there where they can go apply for jobs. They have bus service, and like I said, laundry service, a daycare. They provide very good wraparound services. They don't just dump them and leave them.
Yeah, please.
I'm trying to say something for a second. In the beginning, I guess I failed to give the intention of where we would like to see this meeting go. On the 15th of September, a resolution was passed, essentially that said no FEMA cities. Now, we, as a strike team member in the parish, is working somewhere between that and, if that's it, there's no need for us to even be here, point blank. So us bringing you the list of 9 sites, it's essentially a menu for you guys. It's not saying that we're going to put things on all these 9 sites. We want to essentially get to a dialogue where we can get past, if it's something that you feel that you're willing to do to help us, get past the resolution of saying nothing's happening to, well, these are 9 sites we identified. Let's have a discussion on which one of these, maybe just one, that we can identify somewhere. That's why the map was given, that's rural enough where the infrastructure would be less impacted of all the 9 sites, that we can at least open a discussion, get you the information, what we're going to put here, and we can go from there, and hopefully there can be an ongoing dialogue with the ultimate goal of at least having something there. So hopefully the way we're looking at this could change somewhat, where it could, like I said, be a dialogue, because all we had was no FEMA cities. But maybe if we can present you with some sites, like we said, we know that last site doesn't have to go through the zoning, so that might be the easiest of the 9 that we have. If you agree to at least, let's look at that. We can come back with you with more information. This is what we're going to put here. Is it something we could work with? Yes, and at least we have something. So that's the intention. It wasn't blindsiding with these 9 sites we're going to do. So that's kind of where we're going with it.
Mr. Savoy.
Yeah, a couple things. You mentioned something about when a trailer comes in, you ask the individual where to deliver it. Does that mean the 122 that is at Lamar Dixon and all the ones that are living with family or friends throughout the parish, whenever their trailer comes in and you ask them where to deliver it, or does that mean that it may be that they're leaving the parish and delivering it somewhere else outside of the parish?
If the site that they want it at is feasible, they have to do site assessments and verify that it's feasible. Yes, they could be leaving the parish.
All right. Out of the 122 that's remaining at Lamar Dixon, do we have a figure of how many couples, or how
many families?
How many families or couples? Because you probably don't need 122 trailers to satisfy emptying Lamar Dixon.
No, I am working right now on emptying Lamar Dixon. I took a priority list to transitional housing, to the commercial sites that are being delivered, and we have emptied quite a few out of Lamar Dixon already into those, and we're waiting more trailers to be delivered. So they have first priority because we want to empty the Lamar Dixon. So they are going to the commercial sites. So I'm not sure what the option is for them after tomorrow if the trailer is not ready.
but we don't know how many trailers we need to
To house 122, no, sir, I don't have that broke down.
Mr. Helensbeck had a
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope you can understand the dilemma we're in. We certainly want to help. Understand, we're elected by the people of Ascension Parish to make decisions in the best interest of those people first. My biggest concern about this is we open this up, people coming from other parishes and start flooding in, and we wind up, I just don't think y'all have a handle on the number of people and the control of how this would come down, how it would take place. It'd be real easy for me to vote for this, because none of these sites are in my area. It'd be real easy for me to vote for it. I can't.
Well, I think we've pretty much kind of given you a general direction of where you need to go. I think everybody that has spoken has been pretty unified. Mr. Shakespeare, do you have something that has not been brought out already?
I think so. We have 108 sites, I think, on commercial property.
Let me clarify that 50 of those sites are null and void, and then about another 10 of them we're having sewage problems, so we're down to about 40 sites on commercial.
What's wrong with
Why don't we...
The 50 was Mr. Simpson's, and the leasing did not go through. He pulled out.
He has a trailer park and he's not allowing...
He chose not to.
So they have a choice on whether they can, in a commercial...
Yes, it's their commercial site, so he chose not to lease.
And so we wouldn't have a choice whether we would get it in an area or not. But I think you have a number of sites that I think you could go to and improve upon these sites that they have. If they have sewer problems, why don't you fix the sewer problems in the current trailer sites?
They are fixing them.
And do all of that and max out that. And I teach school. I have kids coming in that are leaving on a daily basis. The parents, the kids and the families want to go back as soon as possible, for the most part. And then you have a percentage of them that have decided to stay here, and they bought houses or in the process of buying houses as soon as they become available, and they're going to stay here. I think that with the trailers that we have in the commercial area, if y'all enhance them as quickly as possible and maximize that, because they're already zoned for that, people that live next to them already know that they're going to have trailer parks there, and that we should do everything we can to maximize that, and it's spread throughout the parish. And as the people return to New Orleans, it allows for trailers to become open, for sites to live in. And those people that are displaced now can have an opportunity to move in there and replace them. And I think in a short order, you're going to see Mayor Nagin has asked for 5,000 trailers in certain areas of New Orleans. And there's going to be more places for them to go back there. And I think the problem will solve itself within a couple of months. By the time we open up, we do all the infrastructure necessary to open something else up, it's going to be something that's going to be a moot point. And I have to ask you something. You said the trailer park would not need to be rezoned. How long does it take? Doesn't it, if something's not used for a longer period of time? How many years? 6 months. That trailer park has been closed for years and years and years and years. And you're going to tell me now it doesn't revert back to what the underlying zoning?
Right. The owner of that trailer park 6-7 months ago came in and questioned us about reopening. At that time there was some dialogue about the possibility of him doing it. But I don't think there was a statement made that they would not have to rezone, other than that park is available pending rezoning of it to the fact that it allowed, since it was a place on a strip that would probably be conducive to rezoning. And then on that part, it also has to bring it up to the standards of our new, since 1985, the subdivision regulations, fencing, hard surface, areas of green space and that kind of stuff.
But it wouldn't have to go through a rezoning to handle trailer park.
It was mentioned here, but I was directing these folks to go talk to Lance Brock, zoning official, and clarify. that the rezoning issue.
Well, I mean, it's been my understanding from the beginning on every zoning issue, if you close something up for...
Exactly, that's why I said 6 months.
Back. And I think, as long as I can remember, it's been closed.
Okay, I don't think we can debate each site here, and that's probably not where we're at. But we have marching orders. Let's figure out how many people that we're talking about, how many people we're actually going to need to house. Then that'll give us a handle on how many places we need to.
Densities per lot, per acreage.
We can control that, y'all. In other words, what they have told me, and I think of course, there's a lot of different people you talk about. These guys at least been here around for a while now, that they will not do what we do not want to do. The parish president doesn't sign a letter, they won't do anything. And obviously, I'm not going to sign that letter without the superintendent, sheriff, and the council and everybody being involved in the process. So if we say yes, we're willing to rezone this property that's out there in an area, the school system's okay, and we put 100 trailers there to get the rest of our people in, and we're only going to put 2 an acre, for example, that would be our call. Because just like any other zoning issue, it has to be approved by you guys, the council. So that's something. You guys have this list, you can look through it. I'd ask them on the map to put on there, you know, what close to proximity to schools, services, groceries, because somebody brought the point. The park and ride is not going to go all over the parish. It's going to go between here and Baton Rouge. So obviously, some of these people don't have transportation. So there's a lot of issues with this. But in the last meeting we had, so we can still put this in perspective, there's 200,000 houses that's been destroyed in Louisiana. 200,000. So that's 400,000 or 500,000 people. And even though they may put 5,000 in parts, there's parts of New Orleans, St. Bernard, Plaquemine, and Cameron, they will not have people living in for years, probably, what they're telling me, you know, when I meet with the state people and all. So, and they told me today in the state office that we still got over 450,000 of our citizens living outside Louisiana still. Now, how many of them are going to come back, we have no idea. So, the whole purpose of this tonight was for them just to show you some potential lists that used to be 30 or 40 that I whittled it down on and said, no, we just can't, no possibility in those areas of our parish that we didn't consider it. And I think all of you would agree with me if you went and saw it. This is 9 areas where traffic in other areas, at least there's some potential maybe, if you guys want to consider it.
We want to help if we can help. So if you can get that information back to us that was requested of you, I think that will give us a better idea of, just tell us how we can help. But I really thank you for all of your work and your interest in our parish and for everything that you've done. Thank you very much for the presentation. We look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Thank you. All right, item number 12 is a recommendation from the Transportation Committee for funding for the 2004 Intersection Improvement Project, Phase 2A. Committee Chair Cheryl Fontenot.
This is the 2004 Intersection Improvement Project. If y'all remember, guys, with only 3 turn lanes that are needed in this parish. It's the beginning of improvement in our parish to get traffic moving. As I understand it, it was budgeted for $167,000. They actually bid it out, and they only had 1 bid return in for $267,000. It was explained to us last night or Tuesday night that $100,000, out of the $100,000 extra, that $40,000 was for some limestone that they didn't think was going to be needed. They were just being proactive with it. So we would be up like $60,000. The problem is we could maybe go rebid it, but as Mr. Rue explained last night, with the traffic, with the road problems that we're having now, and the contractors trying to rebuild New Orleans and other places and like that it's going to be extremely difficult to get any more bids than that. Prices are going to just go up. It is, I feel like that as a transportation chairman, that we really need to move forward with this project. This project, I think, started in 2003. It's a 2004 project. We're at the end of 2005. We really need to get on with it and show the people in Ascension Parish that we're going to do projects, that we're going to quit redirecting projects. And so I would ask y'all tonight to support the increase in the...
Is there a recommendation from the committee, Ms. Fontaine?
There was just a recommendation that we bring it to the Finance Committee.
Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
Who's the one contractor, the one bid?
R.J. Dago.
I'll make that motion that we accept. R.J. Higgins.
Motion by Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Hillensbeck.
And we got $160,000?
Could be 100,000.
Up to 100,000, but more realistically 60,000. Any other questions? Mr. Savoy.
Yeah, Bill, give me the intersection to be improved.
3 intersections are Mighty Cease Road at 431, Swamp Road at US 61, and also Duplessis Road at LA 73.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any opposition?
Object.
Mr. Byriger objects. The motion passes. Ms. Suzanne, would you put that on the council agenda? Question, does that need to come as a recommendation of finance or as a recommendation of the, and it's just a housekeeping?
Finance.
Finance committee?
Yes, sir.
All right, then we'll put it under the finance committee. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fontaine. Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. Item number 13, the 2006 budget review. And it's under Council Chairman Jerry Savoy's name, and I'll let you start, Jerry.
I was waiting for 15.
That's Mr. Byron's item.
It's been a long night.
Mr. Chairman, it is time for us to review this. We should be using this as a working meeting to discuss the budget, so that's the purpose of it being on the agenda. Hopefully we can go through some of it, all of it. If we do, we can go ahead and proceed with action on next Thursday's meeting, or if we don't, we can wait until the following meeting and call another working meeting.
You make a good point. As you can see on the proposed agenda for next week, this item is on the agenda to be approved. The budget is on the agenda to be approved. However, the law says we must approve it 30 days before the end of the year. So as long as we deal with this by the end of November. So we'd like to go ahead and deal with it and put it on the agenda next week and take care of it. However, we do have some additional time as long as we deal with this by the end of November, if you're not comfortable with what's going on. So, Mr. Savoy, you still have the floor?
Yeah. One thing is, I'm disappointed about number 9, item number 9. I thought we were supposed to get an update, a monthly update now. And it's very, very important for us to get this particular update going into the budget review. Because they were supposed to be coming with some additional numbers, and significant numbers, I thought, from what I understood. So I'd like to know where they're at and why they didn't show up. All right. I'll start it off as far as I went through the whole budget, and I've got with Mr. Gwen LeBlanc and make calls to her several times to try to understand the budget and this and that. There's 2 areas, actually there's 3 areas that are of concern. One is a line item for $225,000 for in-house attorney. That after looking at it, I do not think that that is something that we need to go into at this particular time. Ms. Fontenot, coming through her transportation committee, she has been working on getting information on 2 programs. One is a crack seal program and a pothole program. Our roads that we have constructed over the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, we were told that they had a life expectancy of somewhere between 15 and 18 years. As it's turning out, we're coming up short on the life expectancy of these roads. There are some things that we can do, some maintenance things that we can do, such as crack seal. If we can go in and have some programs where we seal the cracks to stop the water from getting underneath the base, that would lengthen the life of the program. Ms. Fontenot's brought it up. I don't know when's the first time she brought it up, but she brought it up quite some time ago. Got with URS to really familiarize herself with the program, and it's very viable programs that we seriously need to look at. And not knowing where we're going, Mr. Chairman, as far as if we're going to satisfy ourselves tonight and move forward at next Thursday's meeting to adopt the budget or not, I don't know that. But so I may, depending on how the workshop goes as far as the budget, depends on what I would do tonight in terms of a resolution. But I'm looking towards moving that $225,000 and putting it towards the 2 road programs that's been identified as needing to implement, wherever it needs to be, whether it be in the day-to-day operations budget or if it's in the construction budget. Doesn't matter, that's up to the administration to figure out where the best place to put it. The other area of concern is roads and road construction funds. I started off on a PowerPoint presentation, but because I'm part-time, I didn't get to the PowerPoint presentation, so please bear with me. I do have some materials that I want to share with you. On roads.
Jerry, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave. Mr. Chairman, I've got a week I've got to make before it finishes at night.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Hillensbeck.
Passed away, yeah.
Bob Hornby.
All right, for your information, since we have taken office this term, we have already taken in 3 miles of roads so far in 23 months. Now I got an email with a list of roads that's to be coming to us very shortly, and I think that total length is 5.9 miles. So we're talking about right at 8 miles of roads that we have taken in already in our first 23 months in office. So our roads are getting longer and longer that we have to maintain. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to start reading through some emails throughout the year, and in particular, the focus of our priorities dating back to the beginning of 2004. This is either going to be coming from, I either got this information from emails or reports out of the newspaper. In February 2005, we talked about, the parish president talked about leaving for a legislative conference in Washington, D.C., and we talked about the 3 main projects we discussed. To recap, they were as follows: widening 42 from 44 to 72, widening 73 from I-10 to 61, and 3-lane industrial high school, and industrial corridor from 44 west to River Road. All right. January of 2004, had a meeting with Eddie Lambert and Jody Amadei on the road needs. In 2003, there was, I suggest that we create an internal loop. The past president started talking about the internal loop, including Highway 30, 431, 42, and 73, which is a distance of 32.5 miles. At that particular time, parish president appointed an initial steering committee coming from the Leadership Council Committee to work with engineering firms out of New Orleans to look at the priorities. On March of '04, another topic he talked about was roads, and our downsized Ascension Parish Leadership Council met with Congressman Baker for about 2 hours yesterday. He stated he needs our top 3 priorities, and that it's important that our group has a united plan. And he talked about the group talking about the Leadership Council initiative. I mean the subcommittee that he came up with. And Mr. Baker said his thoughts are that the state would be hard-pressed to come up with their 20% match for these increased federal dollars. Therefore, he is including in the bill that those parishes who have matching dollars will have the money come directly to them. And it's important to remember matching dollars, because I'm going to highlight matching dollars later on to them. Baker further stated that if we come up with a larger match, we would most likely move up on the priority list, which is important to try to get things moving in the area of roads and transportation. In March of '04, out of the Baton Rouge Business Report, stated that Representative Baker secured millions of dollars for area street projects. Ascension gets $10 million for 42 and 73. Now, we all know since then that's been reduced down to $8 million. Okay. In April of '04, Ascension Parish government, a message from the parish president. Let's talk about road improvements. Congressman Baker called last Wednesday stating he had obtained $10 million for 42 and 73. With $2 million match from state and maybe some parish match, we should begin making some badly needed improvements. So we talked about match, we talked about federal dollars and match. And we talked, the parish president talked about well, the question was asked by many people as far as what did the parish do with all the tax money from industry along the river over the last 30 years? Parish president says that I just have to tell them I don't know, but that the new council and the administration, we are now addressing our basic infrastructure needs. In July of '04, with a conversation with Eddie Lambert, I really appreciate your efforts to help us improve our traffic problems in Ascension Parish, especially in those areas of the parish where it is needed most and needed now. However, when all is said and done, in order to make this happen, we will have to look at other sources of funding. We may even need to look at a dedicated tax for certain road improvements, giving our citizens a chance to voice their approval or disapproval. Now, that's a statement that I'd like for y'all to keep in your heads, because that's going to come up later on too. Giving our citizens a chance to voice their approval or disapproval of a tax. In August of '04, emails, it goes on as such highways of 44, 42, 73, 431, 31 continue to be the roads much traveled. That's one reason that I have talked so much about making a loop around the parish. However, it's going to be very expensive. We are working to find the money to do it. For I know infrastructure development, roads, wastewater, water, drainage is critical to help bring in the kind of economic development to offset the decline in the petrochemical industry. I tell people all the time now that bad roads to good schools, to libraries, and good fire stations are no longer acceptable. We must address these issues for our public safety. And another one in August of '04, he states that administration is looking into the possibility of letting the public decide next year what and how they want to fund parish services. there's no free lunch in America. I think you get the picture. The focus has been roads and infrastructure. Okay? And I can go on, but I think everybody gets the picture. One thing that I would like for everyone to try to recall, back prior to us taking oath of office, we had some summit meetings. In one summit meeting, the parish president had each individual one of us write down what our priorities are. I had it, and I couldn't find it, but I got the pertinent information. I went back and I pulled the top vote getters on our priority list. Roads and traffic got 10 out of 11 council votes on our priority list. So 10 out of 11 council members wrote down roads, traffic. 8 out of 11 wrote down drainage as our priority. Okay? And the next one I think might have been economic development or sewer and water, and recreation was in there. Okay? But going back to our own priority list, roads was the top vote getter, second to, with drainage coming in second. All right. The budget as presented does not show any monies going into the road construction fund. Okay. Now, we do have 2/3 of a half-cent sales tax dedicated to roads. Okay. Now, you don't have a nickel more that's gone into the road construction fund other than that dedicated. In the past, we have always passed a resolution through the council that all excess sales tax would be put into the road construction fund. Okay? And there was a reason why that was done years ago, mainly to identify the money to be dedicated to something. Otherwise, it was looked at as being available free money to go and get. So we wanted to earmark it. I think that's very important. Now, if you look at your budget, well, a couple other things too. It's important. I think Mr. Richard Baker called the parish office and asked them to compile the 25-year list real quick and submit it to them. If you remember, and I'm sure everybody got this, in the transportation area, the immediate need was $92 million. In drainage, there was $10 million needed. Water, wastewater, and fire protection was $6 million. In years 0 to 5 in transportation and roads, it was 154. Oh, I'm sorry. 154 million. And in drainage, 14.5 million. So that's just to show you what the needs, how great the needs are for those two infrastructures right there. All right, Ms. Gwen, I'm going to need your help as far as directing me to the sales and use tax fund. That is
District 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, under special revenue. Tab, special revenue tab, page 19.
Page 19. If you turn to that page, which is the sales and use tax, if you look down on the 2006 budget, at the very last figure, which is $4,044,000. All right. Out of that $4,044,000, the general fund needs $3.2 million. We need to transfer out of that fund $3.2 million.
5.1 in 06. It's already been, expensed in '06. That's what's remaining at the end of '06, after we.
That's extra money.
Whenever I spoke to you today earlier, and we was on this page, and we talked about this 4 million, where did I get the 3.2?
That's the adequate fund balance that we should have anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm sorry, but for financial stability, Burke Falk and the financial advisor says you need to keep 3.2, okay.
Of the 4.
Of the 4.
Yeah.
So, and out in the remaining, we're looking at the courthouse west needing more money. Okay, and also, I think administration is going to ask for additional monies for a couple more hirees. So that's taking more. So you're not left with very much at all that you could even put into the road construction fund. Okay, according to the budget that's been submitted for '06. There's only one place that can be put or pulled from the budget to move toward road construction fund, and that is Lamar Dixon Fund. Okay? Now, that's why I think it was very important for them to be here tonight, so we can try to get some somewhat hard numbers so we know where we're at. Now, back in, what was it, June, July, we moved $1 million from the general fund to Lamar Dixon Fund. In '06 budget, they're wanting another $1 million from the general fund to be put into the Lamar Dixon Fund. Let's go to the Lamar Dixon Fund, Ms. Gwen.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, are we going to interact and talk? Or just going to be a workshop, or just going to be a presentation of how it?
Mr. Savoy had this on under his name, and he's making his presentation, and then we can.
I didn't know if you guys wanted to ask
I'm waiting to hear from Mr. Savoy, but I wish you'd kind of maybe limit it to what you want to do and what you like to, and all the historical data we can,
I can offer a motion, and we can wait for a second until everybody's heard. If that's what you want, if you want to know exactly where I'm going, I can do that.
That would be nice.
Now, I just know you want me to respond to some things.
I'm going to make a recommendation, a motion anyway. If that's what, I'm going to make the motion anyway. If that's what you want to do. I'm going to make the motion that and this is a compromise. I feel like this is a compromise. I'm going to make a motion. My motion is going to read that we fund the Lamar Dixon to the minimum required by the lease agreement to keep and that's keeping the gates open. Fund Lamar Dixon to the minimum to satisfy the lease agreement that was signed, and the remaining money be transferred into the road construction fund. Okay, that's going to be my motion. So now everybody knows where I'm going with this.
Now, can we talk about this? I thought this was going to be a workshop on the budget.
It is a workshop. I'm just not finished.
Oh, okay, good. I need to reserve about an hour when we finish this, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so, Ms. Gwen, Lamar Dixon.
Okay, it's a special revenue fund too, under the special revenue tag, and it's fund number 27 on page 77. 77. Under that tag.
Okay, yes. According to the budget, they're looking at ending the year with $535,000 with these figures right here. But like we were told last month by Mr. Eddie, and I talked to Mr. Thornton, they anticipate a $900,000 deficit, and they already recognized that that's down to $600,000. So that's a $300 savings right there. And with this month's figures, we didn't know. It might be even less than that, to where this ending balance is going to be even more. Okay, so I think if we want to stick with our original priorities, we need to try to find every nickel that we can to move into the road construction fund. I'm not talking about closing the gates on Memorial Dixon. I'm keeping it open. I'm giving you the minimum requirements to keep the gates and satisfy the lease agreement. And that's it, Mr. Chairman. I'm finished, and we'll hear from other people.
Well, Mr. President, I'd like you to respond to the comments that Mr. Savoy made about of this particular issue.
Well, obviously our priorities haven't changed, and as we told you when we gave you the budget a month ago now, 4 weeks ago tonight, we told you, and SNG told you, and since that time, we've got in, I think, $192,000 from the Red Cross, so more than likely $1 million budget amendment that the council went along with this summer, we may not use any of it in the deficit situation, the way things are looking. So, in reality, we'll probably have $1 million that we didn't use this year to fund this right here if we needed to. And in addition, the T21, Transportation Equity Act of the 21st century, before we took office, had no money in it for Ascension Parish and earmarked for roads. And so keep in mind, when you talk about priorities in roads, the transportation study that we have outlined a huge amount of money we need for the next few years. But for the next 6 years, of that $700 million outlined in there, we got $8 million earmarked for Ascension Parish. That's it. So if we put up a 20% match each year, it's less than a couple $100,000 a year is all it is for that money. If we have to do it and the state doesn't do it, and obviously we will not know until a few more weeks, and probably even in January when they do their revenue forecast at the state level, what the situation will be. But now, also keep in mind that in this budget, there's no money for impact fees. And if you recall, the purpose of impact fees was primarily to be a match on state road projects that the state has told us they do not have the money to widen. And so, let's just say, and Duncan and Associates and Mr. Landry and Mr. Sandri and them, if you recall, their estimate was $2.5 million a year for impact fees based on the growth rates from 98 through 2004, I think. And obviously that growth rate has accelerated this year. And so we will get enough in impact fees to match the entire $8 million for 6 years. So if the growth continues based on the work that's been ongoing now for many, many months, we will have a whole lot more in matching money than we will have commitments from the federal government to give us on these federal highways that qualify for federal highway dollars as part of the federal highway system. So in 5 years at $2.5 million, we've got $12.5 million matching funds, and we only need 1.6 for the $8 million. So we got money left over to be used in certainly many different areas. Now, hopefully what will happen is that would give us some leverage and will show members of Congress, and there's so many things in fluctuation now because of these storms. I mean, I've been postponing trips to Washington the last 2 months because the regular domestic bills are really not being dealt with that normally are in October and November because of the emergency appropriation bills. And so when Congressman Baker and Senator Vitter and Senator Landrieu and Congressman Melanson asked us to turn in our priorities and to take it from a 25-year plan down to a 10 to 12 to 15-year plan, I think, Bill, we did it in 4 phases of development and trying to show them, and it was based on the impact that was taking place in the greater Baton Rouge area. The anticipation was that the growth rates would be accelerated significantly in the Baton Rouge area and how that would impact traffic. Now, Congressman Baker was very straightforward with me. He didn't think there wasn't a Santa Claus who was going to be up there and give us this $98 million immediately and $100-something million in 5 years. That the priority spending would go out to those areas that was devastated the most. by the storm. And so to rebuild infrastructure in Orleans, Cameron, St. Bernard, and those parishes was going to be the priority spending. So I can't tell you, nor can any of you tell yourselves or me what we're going to get, because they don't know what we're going to get. Now, so far, because the President and Congress had passed the transportation bill, and I remind you that that bill had actually expired in September of 2003. The 6-year it was called T21. And so it took all the way to this summer, almost 2 years before it was renewed. And so from not getting anything with past councils and administrations, our trip to Washington, at least they would get $8 million in there, and there was nothing in the one before. If you go back and look at that T21 for the 6 years prior, that was earmarked. Now, money came to the state, it came to, but there was no earmark in there where it was directly appropriated for Ascension Parish for a specific road. And that's one reason Congressman Baker started doing that, because what was happening, that money would go to the State Department of Transportation and Development, and they could actually use it for where they wanted. And so if you'd like to get a copy of that bill, it's easy to access. And so we were actually successful in, I guess, 8 million times more money than we got previously. But it's still only for 6 years, ladies and gentlemen, which is a drop in the bucket for what we really need. Now, it's true that Lamar Dixon came on the horizon way after we did our summits, Jerry, and way after we did our priorities and the opportunities. I told George I was going to try to convince him to change his mind on Lamar Dixon, and I said, no, I'm wrong. I'm going to try to get him to rethink it. And I was going to take him through a scenario, but I think it's too late tonight. But he and I would have probably agreed. I was going to go through Dutchtown High School and build football stadiums and athletic recreation facility, because we could say that Lamar Dixon is an extra. I could say that if I was on the school board, I could be a good school board member, and my grandchildren would get a good education without having football or dancing teams as part of the school system. There's nothing in the Constitution that requires a local government authority to have athletics, to have a good school system. But I think we would agree, George and I would both agree, that there is a benefit to having an athletic program that enhances the education and the well-roundedness of young people. Now, if we just take Dutchtown, U.S. High School, take any of it, none of them, and we got some young people that play football, and maybe they want to rodeo too, or ride horses, or show animals, show cattle. We got some that don't do that. They just want to show animals. And if you just take one of our high schools, and I met with Mr. Sanjay, none of them provide those activities as part of the extracurricular activities in our schools. Dutchtown High School, for example, sits on 50 acres of land, and we spent close to $30 million. And I probably voted for all of it too. Okay? And a football field is used about 15 times a year for a football game if the JV and the freshmen and the varsity all play 5 home games. And the most is 100 football players probably total, or close to it. Dutchtown got a few more this year, Yale probably got a few left. But the point is, we invest $2 or $3 million for a football field for a very limited number of activities for a very limited number of people. And I can assure you and can show you in statistics that the number of young people in our parish, where they don't have an opportunity, we don't have a high school rodeo program in Ascension Parish School. We have 4-H, but none of our high schools have a barn or a place to show animals. And so we have the potential of buying 247 acres with over 550,000 square feet of buildings, where hundreds of our own young people can participate and develop talents and gifts and have an extracurricular activity, much like a football or a dancing girl, at our high school. Now, I would submit to you, if that was provided by the schools, we probably wouldn't need Lamar Dixon. We could just use those facilities. But we didn't have to build a new football stadium at Dutchtown, did we? We could have let them play at East Ascension, Salmar, Dutchtown. Johnson did. But we did. And so, if we look at the cost of these kinds of things, there's nothing in the parish charter that says we have to provide recreation. Recreation is not even mentioned in the parish charter. The parish government will provide recreation experience for our young people. But I think we would all agree, just like George and I would probably agree, that the system is enhanced with a good athletic program. So I think our recreational program, and Lamar Dixon gives us an opportunity to really enhance what we offer our young people. If we just count the young people, don't even count the adults with culture and other events. If we just talk about young people showing animals only. If we just talk about the state livestock show, which I want to announce to our people, it's going to be February 11th through the 17th, but we have people here from all over Louisiana, all 64 parishes coming to our parish to spend money, kids and parents and grandparents showing animals. And I've learned in my experience of working with young people, and I've done it a lot, that very few young people who learn to love animals go out and shoot people. They learn to love living things. So I think even though our charter doesn't require us to provide softball or baseball or basketball for our young people, it probably enhances our parish and improves the quality of life. And I submit to you, Mr. Savoy, and to the rest of you, that the Lamar Dixon potential, and I think you'd have to be real closed-minded now just from an emergency preparedness standpoint. This facility was located right in the middle of our state, halfway between two major storms. And the compliments we've gotten from the national and state level about this facility and what it did to help people during emergencies, if for no other reason, has certainly proven its worth to Ascension Parish. And in no way does that diminish now from a priority of improving our road system. None whatsoever. Because even if we had $100 million to match federal government, we only got $8 million in that 6-year budget. And I would think the likelihood now, with all this happening around us, to be increased significantly has gotten worse instead of better. The storms in some way have helped our parish, but it's also hurt us in the sense that we have so many people on each side of us now that need those highway dollars and those sewer dollars, that we probably have a less probability of getting that money sooner than we did before these storms because of the needs that are so significant on either side of us. And part of the reason, now, you said that in the past a resolution was passed by the council to take money that was not used in the undedicated sales tax, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and was put on road construction. When I go back and look, an animal shelter was built. We had the state cut back to only one health unit in our parish. The parish government decided to fund two still. Previous administration and council kept it open, one in Gonzales, even though the state's only funding one. And I'll submit to you, if you go check those budgets, you'll see that some of the money to help pay for those, the deficit spending within the health unit budget came from the undedicated tax. Also, we took money from recreation. We used the undedicated tax for recreation. Lamar Dixon is a recreational opportunity as well as some other things, Jerry. And so I'm convinced, and I think most of the people in our parish are convinced, that the investments in Lamar Dixon is something that we really do. And I would veto any action to take it out, and I'd line out and veto other things. We can play politics, we can go at each other, I can line out and veto things, but I have a problem. I can work with you guys, or we can fight in the big road, whatever we want to do. But I made a commitment to you, for example, that I would work with you on the Law Ridge levy. I asked you to make a commitment to work on Lamar Dixon. Now, if we want to line out and out the Law Ridge levy project, I'll veto that thing out of there if we want to get into all this stuff. But I would prefer not to. I would prefer to work together. What's important to you, what's important to me, and we say this is important to all of us. Because drainage, the Law Ridge levy, has benefit to this parish. But I also submit to you that Lamar Dixon has a lot of benefit to the parish. And especially if we're going to take the $1 million that we earmarked this year and not going to spend it, which it looks like we won't, and I apologize to SMG not being here tonight. I have no idea where they are. We couldn't reach Mr. Crawford on cell phone, so I don't know if an emergency came up or what happened. But if we have the $1 million, the same $1 million, and we just move it to next year, but then we have not taken any of the money for 2006. And you saw the trends, even before the last month, the trends in our sales tax is up significantly compared to the last 3 years. And so I think we have been a very wise steward of the money. I think we've used it in some very good way. We built more roads, I think, and maintained more roads probably in the last 22 months. It went on for several years. We let out several road contracts. We have some more going to be let out now. And so there's a lot of road work going on in this parish, and we're getting a lot of compliments for it, and I commend the council for working with the administration to do that. And I can assure you, monies that we have left over last year, and the reason we didn't put it in the budget specifically, because I remind you a few weeks ago, we told you we looked at what we get from the state of Louisiana, and we knew the state has been talking about $1 billion deficit maybe. Okay, so we wanted to look at if the worst case scenario was that the state couldn't pay us anything. Okay. I think we found about $2.5 million we get from the state. So we've tried to cover that. If Louisiana gets through and says, Ascension Parish, we're sorry, we got to help those other areas, we don't have that $2.5 million to give you, we have left some money in here to help cover those things. Now, so I disagree with you a little bit, Jerry, in the sense that all the leftover money in the past in undedicated sales tax was used for roads. But it was used for animal shelters, it was used for health units, it was used for light, it was used for courthouse annex. Over $3 million was used for the courthouse annex to match those state funds, and since then, because of escalated costs, we have to take money from that undedicated tax to use to finish that job. And in addition, I think Bill told me yesterday the bids came in for the Parish Seat Courthouse at $905,000.
904.
We had a $5 budget for that. We added more to it the other day to $750, and now the bids came in at $904. So we just talked about a road project. Cheryl asked us to support another $100,000. I submit to you, if we're going to do that, it's got to come out of undedicated tax. The budget, man, we don't have anywhere else to do it. And so I'm willing to work with you guys. I'm willing to sit down and hash it out. But I'm also going to stick for the things that I want in there. And that's why the administration presents the budget. And but I'm willing to work with you guys on what's important to you. And I keep on my desk. It's been there since December of '03. Every one of your priorities, and then an accumulation over the top 5. It sits right under that desk. And we have one-on-one meetings. I look at that before we talk, so we can look at that. So roads, drainage, those are still the top priorities in our parish because we're so far behind with them. Sewer, though, I can tell you this, with some recent deals that were done in our parish with people looking at doing some polls with people, sewer has risen. Because a lot of people in the rural areas of the parish are really concerned about the wastewater situation. But they also showed in that poll, and I'll conclude with this, that people in our parish would probably support more tax dedicated to roads if we presented to them a very good plan. Just like the school board did with the 5 schools. We said, we're going to do this road, when this road finishes, we're going to do this road. And next year we have about election schedules, several dates next year when we can have an election. But the data we have seen has shown that the people would vote for a road tax. Probably wouldn't vote for a jail expansion, probably wouldn't vote for some other thing, but they would vote for a road tax if there was a very good plan put together, and we do like the school system did, and brought in people in the community and outlined a plan, because as you know, our dedicated road tax has only brought in $2.8 million each of the last 2 years, and that should be more this year. It should be in the tune of 3.3 million. But so I mean, I don't know what else to say other than roads are the top priority of my administration and this council, and we've done a lot in 22 months with roads. Now, it's certainly true. Bill Rue gave us a chart, I don't know if he gave it to you, but showing that in a couple of years, if we continue spending the road money, yeah, we'll be out of the money that's left over in that account. But I remind those of you who've been on the council before, if you go back and check, and we've never brought this out publicly, but I've been told about probably $1 million was wasted on the widening project when 14 roads were listed, and then went out and started paying a right-of-way agent, bought some houses for 6%. 70, 80,000. We sold them for $500 a bid the other day. We don't even need it. Don't even need the right of way now because somebody started complaining to the councilman, I don't want my road wide. And so $1 million that has been bonded out with a $16 million bond issue to widen 14 roads. Complaints started coming in from citizens. People call in and say, oh, take that road off the list. We'd already paid a right-of-way agent to go out and buy it. In some cases, actually bought buildings. And the engineers and the people involved in that project told me the other day that we wasted probably at least $1 million on that project because of changes to that road plan. So we've tried to take that plan and what was left in it. And I think Parker Road was the first one, and then Boudreaux Road to really do that, to spend the money. So we can let the money sit there in those road funds and not put the service for our people. But I think we don't pay taxes to let it sit there. We pay taxes so we can use it. So we're going to definitely need more money dedicated for roads in this parish. We can't get close to $700 million in the next 12, 15 years with 2/3 of a half cent and an impact fee on transportation of $1,500 to $2,000 a lot. It'll help us. It'll give us some leverage, but we can't get close to bonding that kind of money. The East Baton Rouge Parish just bonded, what, $400 or $500 million with a half-cent sales tax, but they got a whole lot more money that's generated with that half-cent pothole tax and not 2/3 cent generated. So as soon as we can get through this budget process, I submit that we need to sit down with a group, the Transportation Committee, and some citizens, and start looking at the master transportation plan that Craig and Solomon you gave us. Identify the top priorities, if they're different than what we did 22 months ago, and say, let's go to the people with a plan to increase that tax and to see if they want to vote for another half-cent sales tax dedicated for roads, or 1/3 of a half cent. At least get up to a half cent, not 2/3 of a half cent, and see how many road projects that will do, and then bond those out to go get started on widening those roads.
Mr. Todd Lambert, you had a comment.
Yeah, we keep talking priorities, and we had the Sheriff Wiley talk with us a little while ago that, we're going to have to do something with the jail shortly, and we're talking close to $2 million, and we don't have any funding for it at all right now. So if we're looking at a priority, that's one of them, I think, because we're talking, if you get the local paper every week and looking at back section and see how many arrests are every week is unreal, and we have no place to put them. So that is our safety of our kids, our grandkids. Jail is very important, and so that is a priority that we need to start looking at. Like you said, we need to put some funding in it. Roads, I'm on the Transportation Committee meeting. We had a monthly meeting this week. We took in 19 roads, but we had a little problem taking in them roads because they were subdivision roads. But they have lapsed like 2.5 years. You're supposed to take them in within the year period because you still have a bond on it to repair it if there's needed repairs. Well, a lot of these 19 roads that we took in, or going to take in at the council meeting, needs repairs on them as we speak. But we got a liability because we done let it lapse so long that Bill could probably let us, fill in a little bit more on it. And we're going to have to, we had to take them in, a liability issue. We had to take them in or come up with a lawsuit on them. And it was 19 roads, and there's several of them that's in bad shape already to start with.
First I've heard of that, Tom.
Well, it was at the Transportation Committee meeting.
Bill, you know anything about
So
that?
that's one start right there. And at the Transportation Committee meeting, roads, road ditches and stuff. If we didn't fund a lot of that with our drainage money, our major drainage money and minor drainage money, our road fund would be dwindled down to nothing because a lot of the equipment that is used on the road is funded half with major drainage money. A lot of the trucks on the road are funded with major drainage money. Something we need to look at. Our drainage department is carrying our road fund. You are right. Within a couple of years, we're not going to have any funding left for roads. So the general budget, we got priorities. $2 million here, $3 million, we need to get a little bit more conservative and put them in the place where I think we most need them. And I think that's where Jerry's coming from. That's, $1 million here, and I see we got $600,000 for our building for DPW and expansion this year. There's $600,000 in the budget.
If we need it.
And, so that's my thing, is the priority is, if we're going to keep our road fund from dwindling down to nothing, we're going to have to start funding it with some of the general fund, which it can be done. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Valentine, we haven't heard from you yet, but before we continue.
Parish President.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the poll. Did we take the poll?
No, sir.
Who did a public entity take the poll?
I was told one did it.
Okay, if it's a public entity, I sure would like to know, because it's public. It could be looked at, and I want a copy of it.
You have to go to, well, it's not ours.
Well, I'd like for you to share that information with me off camera, and so I can go request that. Okay, because if they did it with public funds, and it's
Well, it's not public funds.
okay, that's what I'm asking. Okay, it's donated funds.
That's
Okay.
what I understand, Joe. But they didn't give me all the details.
Okay.
They
Well,
told me
as a
that-
councilman, I would like to see it.
Oh,
and
I'd
if
like to see it.
I'd like to ask that whoever did it, I'd like to see
They won't
it.
give it to me either.
Okay. Just a few comments. Impact fees. I mean, it's a tax. I mean, where are we going with this? Yeah, we talked about it. Some councilmen agree, some councilmen don't. So we can't count really these eggs hatching until they hatch. So let's not say, yeah, we're going to get this down the road. That's why we're dealing with the budget now, what we got. Todd, Jerry both mentioned roads, and that's primarily what it is. We spent, or we're going to spend Thursday night $200,000 for 3 turn lanes. I contend that on a daily basis, there will probably be more benefit of our people, our citizens in our parish using those turn lanes than probably we'll get to use out of Lamar Dixon. That's my opinion. You made an analogy a while ago, or comparison about how you want to convince me about, Lamar Dixon and the need for it. And I appreciate the thoughts. But philosophically, I'm totally different, because I do not think government needs to own it. And if government decides to own it, they ought to give the citizens of the parish the opportunity to say whether they want it or not. We do have a facility in the parish that's bought and paid for. It's a small facility, but it can still be utilized, and that's the Sorrento Civic Center. We own it, along with the school board property. It's not a dynamic $50 million project, but since we brought Lamar Dixon up, when Lamar Dixon was built and the mission statement was made, there's nothing in the mission statement that says we're going to run it for 3 years and then we're going to give it to a public entity. They spent their money to build it. When Dixie closed, I didn't see everybody say, well, look, parish government needs to go save that. We need to keep that people working, and we need to do that. I mean, there's 14 people that work at Lamar Dixon at the time this facility we leased it. I think Jerry has got a very good idea. He's allowing us to continue to lease it. I am opposed to buying it, absolutely. Without the people of Ascension Parish saying whether or not they want that, I'm opposed to buying it.
Ask your
No,
I'm opposed to buying it because of that. I think that our citizens are smart enough to figure out whether they want to continue to support Lamar Dixon as a quality of life issue, because that's what it is. I've been told it's an economic engine. I have yet to find a business that has been built in this parish since Lamar Dixon has been built that has, I guess, came here because of Lamar Dixon. That's the way it's presented. Well, Lamar Dixon came here, we got all these businesses. I don't know of one that did that. You're going to say restaurants and all that. They all came because of the interstate and the amount of traffic. If they have to rely on just events at Lamar Dixon in its heyday, they couldn't survive. It's because of the people in this parish that's gone from 60,000 people to 90,000 people, and the amount of people that travel on I-10 that sustains the hotel industry and the restaurants in this area. We have businesses that do benefit from Lamar Dixon, but they were here already. So I don't see this great economic engine that everybody keeps talking about. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I could be wrong on this. But I do not see the fact that parish government has to subsidize a facility that will continue to lose money. We've had people say it. We've had Bert Falk say it. We've had SMG say it. It's not ever going to make money. It's to the point that we don't want to lose as much. And that's what I don't want to do. I mean, there was even talk where we're going to consolidate all our recreation facilities. Well, I contend that our recreation facilities are community facilities that community rally around. That's why the school system in this parish is so good, because it was always community-based. It identified with the community. And the recreation parks identify with the community, and they volunteer their services. They go there. Their kids grow up at these facilities. I would hate to think that we're going to use this facility, as has been stated in the past by some people, that we're going to just we could move all our recreation facilities there. You even brought up something about the YMCA taking over our recreation department. I mean, I don't really know if that's a viable situation. I don't know if you want to do that when the people that children are participating in all these activities essentially make these parks run. The parish has a good relationship with the school board. All the gyms, the gymnasiums in the parish are used by parish government. Football fields and athletic facilities you talked about are used by parish government. So they serve dual purposes, not only for educational and enhanced education, but also for the people of this parish to deal with on the summertime when school's not there, and we use it, and they let us use it simply free.
They let us use the football field. They let the kids go play on the summertime.
They have played on practice fields. They have played on practice fields.
Practice fields.
They have played on. It's part of the facility. You mentioned it. I'm just saying they played on practice fields and they do it. They have leagues that play on it. So, it's a win-win situation with the two entities as far as the school board and the parish. So let's not, I'm kind of like Cheryl. Let's compare apples to apples if we're going to compare things. I really think that roads, as Mr. Savoy said, was the priority. And I think we need to stay the course, because that's what people are crying for. And it's traffic, it's a problem, and Mr. Hillensbeck, he left, but he said many times, he's had a representative up there that's been elected for the last couple of years that says, give me $100,000 and I'll match it. Well, guess what? I got $1 million for him if he wants it. Give me some money. Match it. Because we got it. Because we taking surplus and feeding a subsidizing facility that's not making money and won't make money. That's it.
Mr. Savoy.
Ms. Gwen, would you refresh my memory on the resolution that we passed in the past where we would dedicate the excess sales tax to be put in the road construction fund? How does that read?
How did it come about?
No, how did it read, the verbiage?
It was an ordinance. It was a budget ordinance.
It was a budget ordinance where all excess sales tax from sales tax district number 1 would be transferred into the road construction fund, period. Right? Okay. That's all I want to know.
It wasn't only, we expanded that to water, wastewater, and $300,000 for the office building.
Yeah, on some things that we thought was necessary to operate government, move government. Gentlemen, Ms. Fontenot, Law Ridge levy was talked about. Why? I don't know. We passed the tax for drainage. The Law Ridge levy extension was always part of the plan that we passed the tax for. It takes care of itself, or should be taking care of itself. I did not come here tonight to fight against this great facility. I'm trying to find a happy medium here, really and truly. And I think I have one. I mean, we're going to leave the doors open. We're going to fund it according to the lease agreement, but that also gives us time for the $10 million that's coming from Senator Landrieu for Lamar Dixon. That's allowing us to get the $250,000 from David Vitter. That's allowing us to get through the Katrina Rita disaster and see what pans out and how that pans out. But let's go back to July, I think, whenever this body attempted to put it on the ballot to bring to the people. One comment that was said was, well, let's give the administration, go forward with the administration's recommendations, and that'll give him time to come up with a plan, and then we could go to the people. Today, I have not seen a business plan on Lamar Dixon. And when I say a business plan, I'm talking about operations and maintenance plan. I'm talking about a improvement plan. I'm talking about future development. What's the plan? I don't have one. I haven't seen one. I don't think there's one out there. My very first lesson when I became council 11 years ago, Parish President Tommy Martinez taught me my first lesson. And that's whenever I came to the council requesting money, additional monies to go into recreation. But I came without a plan, and he shot me down. Rightfully so, as it turns out. That was my first lesson. If you're going to come and you're going to ask for money, you need to have a plan. We don't have a plan today as far as financial, business, future. You know, we know the selling price is $7.5 million. We know that we need $4.5 million to make some improvements to get the events in that's required to possibly help offset the deficit. I asked how much we paid Burt Falk to work on Lamar Dixon. We paid Burt Falk $33,752. Burt's response is alternative funding will be necessary. We paid CSRS $9,900. CSRS said that we need dedicated taxes to support Lamar Dixon. There was a poll conducted, paid $5,300 for MultiQuest on a poll. The poll showed favorable for a tax. And I'm asking the council, really think about this. What is so wrong about going to the people and giving the people a choice to vote on this multi-million-dollar facility that's going to cost them? You know, giving our citizens a chance to voice their approval or disapproval. What's the matter with that? That's what I'm asking. I'm asking y'all, please consider that. I'm buying time. I'm buying time, giving you the money that's necessary to keep the facility open and operational until one or two things happen. Mary Landrew comes in with the $10 million, or we put together a plan and bring it to the people and let the people speak. Now, if you want to couple that with a tax for roads and you want to go after the whole half cent, let's do that. Let's work together and do that. But you got to let us know that. I mean, yeah, do we need more money for infrastructure? You doggone right. Everybody knows that. But what's the matter with working together and going to the people and ask the people for a vote? I mean, think about it. Since we've been elected, impact fees. We've talked about impact fees anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800. Now, you can call it impact fees, that's a tax. Okay? Cable. We went up on cable fees, cable franchise, water franchise. We're in the process of water franchise. That's tax. Early on, we talked about juvenile care. That's a millage that we could put on ourselves. And there was serious talk about trying to get that done early on. Airport. Parish President got a statement in the paper where he would support a tax for the airport. Lighting district. We let the lighting district come on with a tax. A fire district came in with a tax. Registration fee, that's a form of a tax. What's the matter with a tax for Lamar Dixon? I'm begging. I'm asking y'all, please. Go with the minimum money to support or to keep Lamar Dixon open and satisfy the lease agreement. And either we wait for the federal help or we go to the people for a tax. That's what I'm asking the council. Okay? Now that's working together. I'm not trying to close the doors. I'm working with keeping it open and finding secure funding. I mean, like George says, the impact fee, that's not a done deal. I'm getting a whole lot of mixed feelings amongst council members. That's not a done deal. You can't count those chickens yet. Don't know where that's going. Match. We need matching money for more things other than roads. Lemonville, we just approved authorization to fill out an application for Lemonville sewer. Look at what happened with Darrow Community Sewer System. We had to add how much more additional money? Substantially more. There's other things that need matching money. We don't have no matching money. We don't. So the funds that we have coming in today, to say that we're going to put some toward Lamar Dixon, we are diverting our priorities. We really are. Because there's some unknowns out there, like for instance the impact fees, like for instance the $10 million in the federal help. There's some unknowns out there. What's the matter with asking the people and giving the people the opportunity to voice their opinion on Lamar Dixon? The poll shows favorable. That's all I got right now.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. President.
I got two questions. Jerry, where did you come up with $4.5 million needed at Lamar Dixon in order to get events? There's $2.7 million that CSR has used for air conditioning, the main arena, and a portable floor.
Mr. President, no, I'm sorry.
I'm just asking. I mean, if you had something.
I saw $4.5 million for improvements.
CSR has, of course, that's probably changed now because it's been several months ago with increased costs. But we're not rediverting funds. We are. I think because we cut operations $3.2 million last year, and in the past the council would use money for different things. I can understand that. Everybody got different priorities and what's important. I just feel strongly about Lamar Dixon, and I think, and I don't think you need taxes for everything. People spoke when they elected us to office, and they say we'll have a 1% undedicated tax, and you guys use the way you think's best for the people. And so, and we may be saying the same thing because you're saying funded at the minimum level. I'm not sure. You give me a dollar figure, and I'll think about it. We're taking $1 million and rolling it over basically for next year. If we don't need it, we're not going to use it, just like we hadn't used it the first 6 months.
I'd feel more comfortable if it was in the road construction fund.
Well, I would feel more comfortable be there too, but I feel more comfortable if when they built the animal shelter, they'd have a funding mechanism in place for it. I guess as a Republican, I don't like taxes to start with it, but George mentioned, he don't think we should own them. Government shouldn't own them. I would ask him, should government own a football stadium? Should government own a gym? It's the same thing.
It's not a matter of should we shouldn't we not. It's not. It's a matter of funding and priority.
Whenever Dutchtown High School came up over budget, and there wasn't any athletic facilities in there, the school board didn't go to people and say, well, you want to vote now to build a football stadium, a softball field, a track. The school board now had done the same thing and made a decision, we're going to add that to this facility. So some people thought that it was in, and then they realized it wasn't. Athletic facilities was not in there. They didn't go to people and ask for a tax. Should we spend that $2.5–3 million to add these athletic facilities? They took the money they had and made a decision because the people already spoke. And so and that is the same comparison, in my opinion. And so there's things that come up that are unknowns, using your own word, Jerry. Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns. But the school board made a decision, and I would have been on the board, I would probably make the same decision. Because I understand the enhancement of athletics to an education of a student. To my own children, my personal life, and hopefully my grandkids' life. And I don't think the school board should have had to go to people for a tax in the city if you want to spend $2.5–3 million to build these facilities. I think I voted for my school board member to make those decisions if they thought that was the right thing to do for the school system. And I submit to you, guys on the council, that's what people voted for. Now, they dedicated some road tax, they dedicated some fire tax, and dedicated some drainage tax. But go back and look at the drainage proposition and when it was supposed to stop. The plan was supposed to be finished, and it said the board would be made up of some people on the council and some other people. Back then it was a police chief. The as well as private city. It's evolved into something else. And I'm trying to go back now and see where that change started. Why wasn't the plan finished in 12 and 15 years like it was supposed to be? Because it says in the propositions the people voted on. The tax would be eliminated when these projects were finished. And so, I don't know because I wasn't involved in making those decisions then. But hopefully it was all done legitimately, and it was just that the projects hadn't been finished, so we're trying to go back and finish them now. But that plan was voted on by the people in 1983, I think, or 82. And it's still not complete, but it said in the proposition it would be. I just use that as an example of how things change. I mean, if you guys are going to vote against Lamar Dixon because you legitimately think government should own that type of facility, I would hope if you was on a school board, you'd vote against a football stadium because you don't think that's a necessary expenditure. I submit to you, we could have taken that money and built one of those 5 elementary schools that we had to go out and ask for another tax on a few months ago, and I support it. And I voted just like Doug and George voted, probably on the board, and to build a football stadium. But it's all about opportunity cost. And obviously the people weren't too upset with it because they went back and voted to build 5 new elementary schools. So, but I trust the people I elected represent me, and when I don't, well, then I elect somebody else. And so I don't see a problem at all with Lamar Dixon being funded until we get the federal funding without going to have a tax. And I think you all understand that it's my position that Lamar Dixon, once we get it established and if SMG can make it look like it's going to work out, we should have people in the community, not just us. Blue River Commissioners or Friends of Lamar Dixon or whatever we call them, should help us put together the business plan for that. I think the people, because some people like motocross racing, Kent and I like cultural events like drama and speech. But we'd like to have a performing arts day, but it should be the community helping us put that plan together. And the company we hired, SMG, should be taking the lead on that once we're to the point. But we can't, I don't think we should spend $50,000 for a business plan under a lease agreement. Now, if we're going to own it, and I understand 2 or 3 that said they would like to support it if we own it, well then I'll be willing to commit $50,000 to help us put together a business plan with a professional person, with the citizens having input in that plan. But to spend $50,000 on a lease, and I think George, someone mentioned this, we don't own the Civic Center in Sorrento. We don't own the land, we don't own the buildings. That was a joint venture through a state legislative act. It's lost money every year. You know, we don't make money on our softball fields at Paul Park or in that over on Savoy Road, Bush Gore. We don't make money on our baseball parks on Stevens Road. It's an investment in quality of life. So, I guess we have a philosophical difference, but I'd like us to be consistent in that. And if athletics and cheering and dancing enhances the life of our students in the school system, I submit to be consistent, we would have to agree that since those activities aren't offered in the school system that Lamar Dixon offered, at least there is some potential or probability that those activities can enhance the quality of life of those young people who don't play football and softball and basketball and volleyball and don't wrestle. So neither one are obligated. You know, none of us took an oath of office to buy Lamar Dixon or provide recreation. Just like nobody in the school system takes an oath of office to provide athletics. It's a quality of life issue that we think is good for the people in our community. So,
Mr. Valentine, you've been...
Well, Parish President, I respect you, I really do, but trying to bring out a skeleton that's not in my closet is not going to work. I mean, I will put my 16 years on the Ascension Parish School Board, 7 years as its president, up against anybody. I was fiscally conservative most of the time and primarily did what I thought the people wanted to do. And I think my record speaks for itself. For you to imply, first of all, I think your first job was a coach. So if we wouldn't have had facilities at schools, you wouldn't have had a first job. You'd have had to teach instead of coach what you love to do. So that went on one theory.
The bond issue was passed. Since you brought it up, 5 years later, it took us 5 years to buy property and fought over buying property, unfortunately, to build a community school in the community of Dutchtown. The superintendent was here tonight. He, Donald Sanji, Patrice Peugeot, sat on a committee. They devised all the plans. The school board didn't. That's how the system works. We was the legislative branch. We supplied the money. Let me warn you. We passed a $40 million bond issue. We had $28 million in reserves. We sat down, which I've suggested, which you said you didn't think we needed. We need to set ourselves and govern ourselves with so much of our budget to go in reserves. Parish budget, like the Ascension Parish School Board did when I was on it. And that was one of the reasons we could dip into the reserves to build an athletic facility, because our high schools had athletics. As far as I can remember, when I went in 1968, there was a football field. We consolidated to East Ascension, one high school. We used the field here. When they built Santa Mall, they had a compromise. We're going to build more classrooms, and we're going to use the old stadium. We're going to upgrade it. They spent money on it to upgrade it. When Dutchtown came around, they said it would cost just as much to upgrade the stadium across the street than it would be to put the stadium on campus. And if you go ask the people in Dutchtown, they are tickled pink. And the people of Ascension Parish obviously think it's a good idea, and the school board now thinks it's a good idea that they went out and got $70 million for 5 primary schools. The fact that we had some foresight and built another high school means that we probably won't need a high school in this parish for several years. In fact, you and I had a conversation in your office because you was of the opinion that we should have just kept the 2 high schools, made them 2,000 to 2,500 kids apiece, and that's how we would grow. And I continue with you, that's not a growth pattern. We got growth patterns. They have to do what's the tough deal, the tough part of it, and draw lines to make sure that it's equal across the parish. That's what the school board has to do. That's their problem. We try to do that. Since you're trying to bring things up, let's talk about charter schools, because I'm very upset that you try to bring this and try to put some stink on me, and I don't like it. When charter schools became a state issue, charter schools, I was not for charter schools for the simple fact it took money away from public education. You had no control over it, and it went to an entity or special entity. Who came to the Ascension Parish School Board and asked for money or told us about a plan that he had to do his charter school? I contend it was you, Parish President. As your insurance, you had insurance. You came and you suggested, and it was a good plan. I listened to it. But you wanted to come take public school money and do your own charter school because you thought that you could do a better job.
No, not at all.
So, I agree, Martin. I done had enough of this.
Yes.
So I'm going to shut up.
Thank you. And Mr. Valentine, I allowed you to make that response, Mr. Valentine, because of comments that the parish president made, and I thought it was fair to give you the opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir.
This has devolved into a debate on philosophy. We have not discussed this budget whatsoever, except for 1 or 2 items. It's 9:40 in the evening. No, it's actually 9:45, closer to 10 o'clock. We have not done anything with this budget. I encourage you to take it home, put it beside your bed, put it beside your favorite reading chair, put it beside your porcelain facilities, and read it and study it, and come next Thursday night prepared to vote on it. Meeting adjourned.
Wait. We have another...
What about 14?
Hold up.
Look at it. Enjoy it.
No, we've got some agenda items that need to go on here.
Who's the vice chair?
Because they didn't have a second on the motion.
Okay. Where are we at? Agenda item number 14?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Proposed agenda for the regular council meeting November the 17th. Everybody has that proposed agenda. We have any questions dealing with the Yes,
Yes,
Councilman Shake Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I have, number one, we had asked that we have an introduction of the Spud and T&D ordinance to be put on there. We did that at the last meeting, that it would be put on as an introduction. It's not on there. The PUD and Spud is one, and the T&D is another one. And to inform everybody I think this one's late, at 11:38 last night, at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, they took it under advisement, and we discussed it, and they pretty much agreed with that, and they're going to have a special meeting with a public hearing on the 30th. Mr. Charles Landry's going to be there. They want to open up the public hearing, and then if they said if they had any changes, they would forward them to us for our meeting on the 1st so that we could vote on it. And so we can get this, and the reason we're doing it is because we had a meeting again today. Councilman Lambert and Savoy, we're starting the work on the drainage ordinance.
So you want to add that to under the strategic planning? Is that what?
No, sir.
No, sir. It should be.
Oh, you want to introduce an ordinance? Okay.
That's where we made a mistake
Two
last
of
time.
them.
And
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we had talked about the last meeting, and that's all right. No problem.
PUD and Spud is one together, and then T&D is the other.
Okay.
The other thing, I had months ago, I think we had authorized a report on DPW by URS, and I've yet to see the report. I would like to have URS put it on the agenda, URS to come by and give us a report at the meeting, or if there's another appropriate time where all the councilmen can hear the report.
What is that on? Excuse me.
Mr. Rue.
We had paid URS, if I'm not mistaken, to do what the president said.
Mr. Shake Snyder is talking about the report that I talked to you about a couple of weeks ago, dealing with the reorganization of DPW and the structure. URS did it, and I suggested that each councilman should get a copy because nobody had seen it, because I had talked with one of the USRS
We're coming up on a
specialists.
budget. I mean, if there's going to be some restructuring, I don't know. I hadn't seen any report, but I do know we did it because we wanted to affect and see how we stood. I just would like a report on it. We had a report that enlightened us a great deal tonight for the jail, and I feel differently than I felt before. We spent money on the report on URS. I would like to hear it, and not just. I don't want to get a report in my hand. We spent money on them. I want them to come over here where we can ask questions or anything else. Now, if we have to do that in a finance meeting, that's fine. Or, if not, I'd like to put it on the agenda as a council meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I can comment.
Yes.
Either way you want to go.
Yes. Okay, hang on a second. Is that can Parish President?
Well,
you got something else?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to finish after. I'll listen to it.
Okay. Well, it was a report that I think y'all.
Yeah, we did a business analysis of the Public Works Department. URS did, and I know at least one or two council members got copies of it, but it's been months ago now. And
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's still sitting on my desk. And I don't remember which couple council members got it, but it was Jerry. Did you get a copy of that? You and Martin? I think you.
I don't know. No, I saw
Sure.
Ms. Fontenot got one. The only one I saw was one Ms. Fontenot got.
I know it was given to some council members.
I asked for one after reading the management book that they brought. I think section 3, the outline that they had that. So I wanted to know what that was about, and I asked and was given a copy. So
We all got the management,
everybody got
part
the
that's
management book.
URS, but we didn't get the
I have to
detailed
read my
report on the
management
restructuring of DPW. That's what Mr. Shake Snyder's talking about.
That's
what I discussed
the
with you a
big
couple of
book,
weeks
yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Now, I think you were going to
There's
speak to
another
Parish
one,
President or
Bill.
maybe Don Heisel to see if you could do that, and I haven't heard
Yeah,
back.
and we have to get extra copies from URS. They have
Okay.
to actually copy it, put it in a ring, put it together, but I can have that.
I think Mr. Shake Snyder would like to have a report, whether it comes from you, Don Heisel,
we'll
Parish
have-
President.
I want URS up there.
Oh, URS, that's fine. Yeah,
I mean, that's what we hired them for.
you're right, Councilman.
And we did hire them. And so we paid them money. I want to. have a report and a written.
Just tell me what meeting, and we'll say.
Let's do it at the next finance meeting.
That would be fine.
Okay, in December. I guess it would be.
Sure now Mike didn't do some of that in the other report?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay. We got that solved.
He did go through it at one of the meetings and combined with some other reports he was given on their status of what they were doing for the parish. They went through a little bit of it. No, he gave us some line item bullet points on it, but not the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ruth.
Third thing, I was wondering, when was the plan on the acceptance of bids for the parish courthouse? When was the timeline for that?
No, that can be put on the next agenda item. I mean, the agenda for the next council meeting.
On this council?
On the 17th? Next week?
Let me back up a minute. The actual procedure would be to put it on the next finance meeting. It's a finance agenda item unless you want to discuss it in the full council meeting. Because it is something like the other bid you talked about tonight, over budget. So the proper procedure is to go through the finance meeting with it, which would mean we have to wait another 4 weeks. We don't have enough. We didn't have enough to put it on. Enough time to put it on this agenda meeting.
We got those bids yesterday afternoon.
Just got them yesterday afternoon. So we could put it on, if you wish to put it on for the next meeting, next week, we could put it on tonight. But again, the procedure is to go to the finance meeting on items like that.
And
is that okay, Councilman?
If we put it on the
next finance meeting,
we can do that and move on. I'm concerned of all. I talked with the contractors, I talked with the architect, and the concern is that because of what has happened in New Orleans, the bids are starting to go out for architects to start designing things in New Orleans, and everything in a few months down the line is fixing to break loose, and it's going to be very hard for them to get contractors and subcontractors.
Okay. Ms. Patterson, make sure that gets on the next finance committee. Okay? Thank you, Councilman Sheikh Snyder. Okay, any other comments on number 14, the proposed agenda?
Yeah.
Yes, Chairman.
This is for the council. Because we did not have the opportunity to go through the budget, does everybody feel like we need another working meeting on the budget, or let it go to the council meeting next Thursday? If we need another budget workshop, then we need to go ahead and take it off. And if so, we'll call for another finance meeting where we can work it, and at that time you could possibly pull your issue up prior to December's finance meeting. You know, that's whatever y'all. If y'all satisfied.
Well, it's pretty obvious we need a working meeting. We didn't finish what we started.
I would say if we do have a working meeting, that we limit it to the budget items, and you know, the 206 budget. I would hate to cloud it. I mean, we might have one or two other agenda items, but I certainly would hate to cloud it with a long agenda item, because you know, we do need to discuss it. That's the intention of the council. Yeah, I'm not saying that. Yeah, and you can extend the public hearing. That's not a problem. I'm not saying we're going to take it off the agenda. You know, we're going to leave it on the agenda, but there's a good possibility that we could have another meeting. Let's discuss it then, Jerry, with the full council. Any other comments on agenda item number 14? Motion by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Barrett.